Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is November 27th, 2024. I'm calling this the 2025 semester, even though I recognize that 2025 officially begins in a month. But what I've been doing is getting the momentum going for next year and really working with introducing some of the foundation concepts of what the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is at the beginning of the class. Usually it takes, oh, you have to mute. You must mute. There we go. There, and another person is entering. Um, Usually it takes several weeks to begin to get to the real nourishment, meat and potatoes of what the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. And we're in, of course, when I originally designed this curriculum, it was all intuitive and it was meant to present things in the most digestible pattern possible for that time of what humanity was going through. It's over 10 years ago now. And what we're going through right now, there's so much pressure and it's such an intense moment for spiritual development. Right now, you guys are like, right now. I'm like, right now. I don't want you to have to wait several weeks if you're a new student to be able to find out, like, get to the point, Aurora, like, what is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna? And also, if you're a new student, why do I want to labor so hard to learn about all of this stuff? Like, what's in it for me? What's the big point about all of this? So the past couple of weeks have really been an intro overview into the most salient points and the most transformational aspects of lasagna to motivate you to want to learn everything. It's like if I'm a music teacher and I'm a musician, I don't necessarily give lessons, but I want to blow you away. The first day in class, going to play an awesome symphony, and you're going to be like, wow, amazing. And then I'm going to be like, you guys are going to play this symphony too. And then you're like, I'm intimidated. Hooray. And then I'm going to be like, okay, now I'm going to break it down into all the things that you need to learn in order to be able to play the actual symphony. So returning students, you're already very aware of the foundation concepts. Thank you for re-exposing yourself to those things because we can always learn. You're never too much or too advanced, too much of an expert or too advanced to be able to re-examine the foundation concepts because you will continue to learn and grow and evolve based upon your new perspective. Just like, whatever, maybe you saw a movie when you were a child, when you see it again in adulthood, you're like, oh, I see it with a whole new perspective, right? So worth it on every level. Last week, as I go through my notes and prepare for this week, I realized I went through most of the important points that are available in lesson 2. So lesson 1 and lesson 2 of level 1, these are on the whiteboards that I've made accessible to all the official students here. Those are some of the foundations talking about this shape, which sometimes I, in shorthand, call it the shape of your chakras, but it's really the shape of everything. It's the shape. So it is the shape of your chakras and your time body, but it is also the shape of Earth's magnetosphere, the sun's heliosphere, the giant energy field that surrounds our whole entire galaxy that is, held together by a black hole, even down to the microcosmic realm of truth. It's the shape of an energy field in an atomic structure, in an electron. It's a profound shape that once you begin to comprehend how the abstract energy flows through these patterns, you can apply it to any scale of reality. So if you know energy emerges from here, the central convergence point, and it emanates here into the periphery, and then it eventually moves back to the central convergence point, you can apply that to the journey of energy through your own time body, through Earth, through, again, superstructures and microscopic structures. And I see there's a question. We'll get going with that question right away. So this is important because today what I'm going to focus on is a little bit more filling in the blanks material of things that I glossed over from a level 2, which is that this is not a direct pathway away from here and back to here. I show it as if it is one simplified loop, but that's not accurate. So let's get into the details of what is happening on the various different scales of reality. And let's also talk about what do I mean when I say ascended mastery. And I talk about this source, which is also your destination, this shape as being a refinery of consciousness, meaning that you're growing in your intelligence and your wisdom and your levels of self-organization. As you circulate through this shape, you're growing and evolving and becoming more focused. And the journey back to here is not like kaput. Like, that's it. I did everything in the whole entire world. I now know everything and I'm done. Like, that's not the truth. Because what actually happens is you will always enter into finer and finer levels of refinement on a journey that is an infinite journey. So wait, now hold on, I'll pause for a moment. The sense of having an infinite journey within a finite space. These are just some of the topics that we'll be going over today. Infinite journey within a finite space. So as I first started to present that concept to people, when I started being a informal, formal professor 10 years ago, some people would be like, their shoulders go down like a roar. Like, we know we've been slogging through this place infinitely, infinite circles, infinite cycles. I'm like, done, very tired. And I'm like, no, put your back up straight. An infinite journey between two finite places is actually really wonderful. So, okay, I'm trying to now articulate this in a less comical way. To the viewpoint of a consciousness that has been unfairly put through many repetitive, non-educational, non-didactic, non-necessary cycles, the idea of endlessly bouncing between two fixed positions in the time-space field is not very fun. You're like, we've been bouncing a long time and we don't like it. I understand that now. I understand that I'm speaking to a population of people that are largely traumatized or feeling imprisoned or feeling disempowered and are not necessarily feeling celebratory about their existence. But I exist here in order to give you a updated viewpoint of clarity where you can comprehend from the viewpoint of your consciousness and from the larger phenomenon of being alive and having a world of energy and matter and a fabric of space-time, that an infinite journey would be a wonderful gift. So I am presenting it from that idealistic viewpoint, but which is also very grounded in reality. Like, I don't do hopium and all of these inflationary tactics and things like that to manipulate you. All of this is very, very grounded in the profundity of the gift of what we are given here. So we're going to talk about infinite journey between two finite places, or within a finite space, and also duality. As I talk about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, resolving duality. What do I mean by this? I mean that although there might be a commonality in the emergence of consciousness from the convergence point here, that does not mean that every single consciousness has the same destination. There is not a uniformity of destination, especially when we recognize that this shape exists as a refinery of consciousness. That means that consciousness goes into this shape and it might have different qualities. Some aspects of consciousness are one way. Some aspects of consciousness are another way. And the journey through this shape separates out these different qualities so that way some stuff goes in this direction, some stuff goes in this direction. And the two directions, as I spoke about last week, are energy and entropy. I use this shape here, which is a static image and a simplified shape, just to give you the shorthand. You guys are super intelligent at this point, and you recognize that this lasagna is not only shaped in this basic dynamic of like dualistic opposites. This and entropy can actually be a position that is in all of these different places where I'm waving my pen. So entropy is not just like the mirror image in perfect symmetry of energy, even though that's what you might presume from this shape. It is actually a large arena of non-being that can be graphically displayed as being a point in many different positions. Hold on a second. Somebody just woke up. We had a dog walk today. We had a nice little exercise before class, and somebody was just sleeping in a princess bed and decided to come over here. We'll just give a little hug. It's not even time for bribes yet. She knows it's not bribes time. Bribes come later. Bribes come later. Good job. And she did a very good job because we had lots of rainy weather And Shiki goes on strike when we have rain. She's like, no, I will not be doing anything today. I will be staying under blankets and remaining warm. And I have like a nice little heating pad for her, a little infrared setup. And she sleeps in the bed under the infrared and everything like that. So Princess Shiki didn't do very much over the past couple of days. Now the sun is finally out today. We got out. We got her lots of everything. But she knows, like we already had all of our main nourishments. We don't need any additional intake for at least a couple of hours. Okay. Thank you for allowing me that brief, lighthearted aside. And I know that you guys all love Cheeky, and I love that you guys love Cheeky because she's a part of our class too. Although she doesn't teach things on an intellectual level, she teaches more of on a direct sensory level. But she's a genius in her own way. Okay, so Christopher, thank you for being here. Says, question, in last week's class, you drew a 3D drawing of the 6 vortexes. Does that 3D drawing have any similarities to the 2D hexagon drawing that Tesla discusses in his 369 topic? Are these two diagrams overlapping in any way where FRL was drawn in 3D and Tesla's in a 2D representation? Yes, yes, yes. You're a very smart person, and I'm glad that you asked that question. It opens me up to a brief exposition on vortex-based math. Everyone is like, math is involved. I'm backing away slowly, jumping out the window. I'll come back in 5 minutes. No, stay. Math-phobic people, stay. And this is going to be totally cool. Actually, I'm not going to do like a whole presentation on this because I could do hours on what vortex-based math is. But I'll give you a little overview, and then I would love for you to look into the work of Marco Rodin as presented by, I would not call them his disciples, his students and people whom he has inspired, because I'm sure he has a busy teaching schedule. So, okay, if I draw this, that's supposed to be a circle, but you already know my pain, how difficult it is to draw with these digital tools and actually make it a real circle. Again, it's supposed to be a circle, but it's not perfect. But what I just did there is kind of represented to you what a toroidal donut would look like in cross section, right? Like you understand this is a cutaway. You understand this right here is the central convergence point. You understand vortex up here, vortex down here, and then the beautiful, delicious donut cake. Donut cake is here. I am scribbling around in a circle. All right. So that is very similar to how vortex-based math is often represented. Wait, I'll take a different thing, as almost like a W shape. Oh no, I do not know what happened. Oh my God, were you guys just able to see that something scary happened? I didn't know what it was. So it almost that she's like, is that an angry butterfly? What am I looking at here? I know. Vortex-based math is often presented almost like this, almost like an exaggerated V or W shape. And you will also see different colors that represent different vectors going around, like that might go, connecting those 2 points. Or, oh my God, now this thing is being stupid. And this might go over here and connect to those 2 points. And you will also see in vortex-based math, the way that the numbers are arranged. Like I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't have it quite right because there's 7, 8, and 9 clearly that have to go in there. I'm sorry, I didn't draw this exactly correctly, but you understand that the numbers are arranged radially, almost like the hands of a clock. And then, so I'm just going to make red dots to represent numbers because I don't have the diagram exactly right. Okay, hold on here. Those numbers are, but I don't have the numbers exactly right, but there should be numbers 1 through 9 with the central point being 0. And then dependent upon the vectors, meaning directions of what these numbers are doing, you're either adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So this is vortex-based math, or VB as in boy, M. And so there's lots of good resources you can watch because I'm mangling this presentation at this point. But this is an important step forward in comprehending the shapes that I present, because it represents that numbers have a relationship that is spatial and topical, that the numbers transformations that we recognize as basic arithmetic have to do with the interrelationship of the numbers in space as they stand next to each other or are across from each other or are related to the position of other numbers in space. This is very different than a linear equation where it's like, here is a unit, here is a unit, here is a unit, and then equals sign something over here, right? That's everything moving in a line in one direction. But with vortex-based math, you might have a line that moves in this direction, and then in this direction, and then in this direction. And that means that you might be adding something, subtracting something, and dividing something. So it's a totally different presentation and conception of what math is. And the 3, the 6, and the 9 in this graph over here all occupy unique positions and have unique qualities in the transformational experiences that you put the numerals through. That's why Tesla had an esoteric emphasis on the value of 3, 6, and 9 as having a greater level of profundity than the other numbers. And then, of course, also I am pointing here at the 0 in the vortex-based math diagram, and that 0 is directly analogous to this central convergence point / singularity / 0th dimension. So these two things are infinitely beautifully related. And this diagram is just the simplification of what the foundation of vortex-based math is. The real math, when you start to get into it, is so complex because now I'll draw over here on this larger drawing that I did. You can comprehend that there are these kind of like spiral-like pathways that go around the edge of the torus. And all of those spiral-like pathways have numbers relations. And so it's like each one of these, there's positions along these number lines that have to do with numbers. And the numbers have relations. So that means that these two guys here, these two numbers here will have a relationship. And these numbers here will have a relationship. And these numbers here will have a relationship. And these numbers here will have a relationship. And have you guys ever played the puzzle game called Sudoku? I have and became quite obsessed with it. And I loved it because it really made my puzzle brain feel happy when I solved the puzzles, right? In Sudoku, basically you have a square grid and, it's kind of like tic-tac-toe, but you have to add up the numbers. You have to add it up so that this number and this number and this number always equal the right number over here. And you have to add them up in that direction, and in that direction. And it becomes this little puzzle of adding up all the numbers. And that's a relatively simple grid. It's usually like a 12 square grid because otherwise people's brains would explode. This is a super complex version of Sudoku where you have a map of the skin of the torus, and then you have different positions on the number lines that comprise that map, and the numbers are in a non-random grid, and they have a mathematical relationship to one another that creates this as a stable mathematical shape. That relates directly to your concept of the multiple timelines that are coming upward from your moment of birth and ending on the membrane of death. So over here, where you have these different moments that are the end of your life, those are like those numbers that have been mapped to the skin of the torus. They are non-random. So this is another that truthful and profound thing that I can share with you. Your last moments on these various peripheral timelines are not random or arbitrary or artificially manufactured. That means that although, like, let's say this moment there, that's you on the membrane of death, frozen in the last moment of your life on that timeline that, began down here and then moved upward in this direction, right? And maybe the last moment of your life was like getting hit by a car. And that is not a random event. It is the end of a series of calculations that are related to all of these other potential time events in causality. So sometimes, you're walking down the road or riding your bicycle, and maybe a car whizzes by very close to you, and you kind of get a shiver, and you're like, oh, that could have ended badly. I could have been smashed to pieces. But instead, the car just brushed by me, and now I'm going to keep on, bicycling away and have a fun time and get to wherever I'm going and enjoy life because I didn't just get smashed up on the highway, right? What is the difference between those two timelines? Either a narrow miss of the car coming past you or a direct hit and it's the end of your life. The answer is non-randomness. It's not like, oh, so I shrug my shoulders like, I don't know, somehow on one timeline you survived. You didn't pick your nose that morning, and that was the critical thing that you did, and then you survived. And then on the other timeline, whatever, you did the wrong thing, whatever, a simple casual act that set you up for destruction, and then the car plowed into you. It's like, no, actually, that is not truthful at all. Every single one of these final moments that you have on the membrane of death and the position of your consciousness when you die is totally non-random. And it is dictated by or in relationship to all of these other complex causality structures that are happening that involve many, many multiple organisms. So you can consider like the planet Earth herself, the other driver of the car, a bird that is flying by overhead in the sky, any whatever flowers that are growing next to you while you're riding your bicycle. All of those consciousnesses and events in time are intimately intertwined. So take heart in what I am saying. Death is not random. Death is, although it is the end result of a flawed math equation of your life, where errors have been made and choices have been made and wrongnesses have been embodied that lead to a non-successful journey. But the end result of finding out that it was a non-successful journey is non-random. And this is really important because as you're going through your day, you might be like, oh my goodness, like here's you. You're trying to be, let's just find a good color. You're trying to be on this beautiful central core timeline that is the timeline of infinity and ascended mastery and making it back to the source that emanated you. And you're like, at every moment, you're like walking on your tiptoes, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to fall over and die? Am I going to get hit by a car? Am I going to get, inexplicably destroyed at one moment? How can I know? How can I navigate? What is the right thing? Like, it could drive you crazy. You would have a low quality of existence. You would have very, very huge amounts of discomfort at not knowing what is going on. And the truth is that death is not some kind of a cosmic punishment or like a smackdown, like you're doing the wrong thing or you're full of pride and hubris, smackdown, take that. No, and all of that stuff that's some really deeply internalized feelings of low self-worth, punishment, violation, and harm that almost every human has felt, including religious abuse via religious doctrine that talks to you about heaven and hell, reward and punishment, morality. That's it. That you have erroneously equated death with a punishment in a world of morality. And I want you to comprehend that this shape and the events of your life dictated by or represented by this shape is not a moral question. It is a mathematical question. It is non-random in the sense that the events of a correct life equation or an incorrect life equation exist beyond moral judgment, which can vary from time, place to time, place, and culture to culture. But the abstract nature of empirical truth is expressed in either your continued longevity and successfully staying alive, or in your finding out that you did the wrong math and having a mortality experience. And when you are given that mortality experience, and when you learn in that moment, like you are dead, you have done the wrong things, it's meant to be educational, not a punishment. And the willingness of your consciousness to change and evolve and go in a refined new direction is the representation that you understand behaviorally. You're not being punished, you're being refined. You're being educated into greater levels of wisdom about how you need to move through time, how you need to circulate through this shape, how you conform to these time patterns so that way you're keeping yourself alive, but you're also keeping the larger fabric of reality alive. Because although I draw this as if it is one discrete unit, it is part of an endless number of these circles that are joined together. And your journey as a little piece of consciousness, you'll go along this circle, but then you'll be a part of this circle, and then you'll be a part of this circle, and then you'll be a part of this circle. Like you're moving through many multiple organisms as an impulse of time, and that you're acting in part of a continuum that is not, it's just not just your little discrete life. So these are all parts of the highest dimensional viewpoint and perspective when you start to move into unity consciousness and recognize how intimately intertwined and connected your journey and your consciousness is to many other aspects of consciousness. You are literally God exploring yourself through, I wouldn't say the multiplication of singularity, but I would say putting singularity in various different positions, because you couldn't see that color. I'll scribble it bigger. Singularity over here, singularity over here, singularity over here, singularity over here. That's all God in all of those positions, and also singularity over here. When I say the word God, some people start sweating internally. They're like, feeling a little bit uncomfortable. She's saying the word God, because maybe some people are atheists or they are just not indoctrinated or whatever. Please comprehend, I'm not talking about a doctrine of human religion in any of these cases. I'm talking about an abstraction that is your true identity and is the abstract origin of consciousness and what makes the created and experienced and sustained world possible. So these are not an anthropomorphic God from any myth or culture or the conception of what a human-shaped God would be like in any way. Much more an abstract force and something that is almost beyond comprehension in its complexity. But just know that that is who and what you are, and that is what all life is, and that all life is in this process of self-exploration and refinement by participating in this shape called time. And the good stuff, I've hesitated before I said the word good, because we're moving into the topic now about duality and good versus evil, which is definitely a cultural proposal based in duality. What do we define as good? What do we define as evil? But basically, this shape is beyond moralism. It is beyond a set of commandments to say, always eat this and never eat this, and that will bring you in the right direction, but that is not truthful. Those prescriptions and limitations on your behavior are not universal. They are highly arbitrary. And in order to successfully navigate this shape and be refined from the equations that bring you to death and to align fully in the pathway that brings you to an eternal existence of infinite bouncing between finite points, that you must do your math correctly, but that can look different from person to person. So for one person, doing their math correctly might be eating bacon, even though that is a no-no in many major religions. And so some people would say you will suffer and burn in hell because you ate the bacon. But on your pathway, this might be your journey of eating bacon right about there on the central core timeline. That's where I ate a BLT and it was delicious. And then it fueled my consciousness to continue going upward until I remembered I was God. Like that might be your life path. And if someone is like, no, never eat bacon, then what that would mean is you would end up being on a lesser timeline. You'd be somewhere over here going in this direction, and you would not be going where you need to go. I don't know why that arrow just drew itself so fancily, but I love it. It's just magic things are happening. I didn't even control that, but something happened. So let me go to these questions now before I go further into the curriculum, because I will just keep on going forward with total momentum and steamrollering. And I want to make sure that I'm responsive to those. So yeah, good. I hope that answers the question more deeply. And again, Rodin, Marco Rodin. Just do a YouTube search, you'll find the guy, and lots of videos about him. And I think that one of his students is named Randy something. I'm sorry, Randy, I don't have your last name memorized. But he is a very good articulator of these concepts, and he draws it out on the whiteboard. So, all right, now everybody who is too afraid to do math and who went off and got a snack, please come back. So we're done with that answer now. Pedro says, knowledge grows and evolves. I learn something new in every class. That's why I keep coming back and I enjoy the company. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you so much. I know you're a long-term student. You've been with the class for over 5 years. Really appreciate you saying that. And it's true. I hope that you're continually getting new nutrition and insight from being a part of all of this. Tom says, providing link to a video of Marco Rodin explaining vortex-based mathematics. Beautiful. So you guys can find that in the chat. I won't play it right now. I don't know if there's copyright issues if I do that, but please do look up the work directly. That is great. And Christopher saying, I love that game. Aurelia says, it's perfect for what you do. Nice, nice, nice. And Aurelia says, love being here too. It's ever unfolding. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for that. And that's also, think about me. Like I am a total expert on this material and I've been teaching it for over 10 years. And I still get new and exciting insights when I go back over my notes and when I listen to my original whiteboards. Sometimes I do that while I might do some exercises or something like that. I've got it on the background and I'm listening to something. I wrote this stuff and I've listened to it for 10 years long, and I still get new insights. I'm like, that is something important. And I think about that and I'm like, I need to emphasize that for who we are in this moment, because of course, my journey is parallel to you guys. We're all growing and evolving. I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago. And key point, we don't live in the same world that we were in 10 years ago. We have a whole set of new and upgraded challenges. So like they're making it harder. I'm like, yes, they're making it even harder. Wasn't hard enough before. But new and upgraded challenges that we will always have to be augmented in order to transform ourselves to triumph over these challenges. Yeah, and that's definitely true. Okay, so wait, let me get my notes back up again here. So most of what I did last week in class had to do with level 1, lesson 2, and both lesson 1 and lesson 2 of the level 1 materials are jam-packed, multi-part lessons, because I felt like I had to start out with a lot of the basics. And a lot of the stuff that's really great in there is there's overlap with your traditional materialistic science that I think can help your intellect to bridge the gap and find more acceptance of these esoteric and highly abstract truths. So one of the areas of commonality is electromagnetism, the relationship between how an electron flows and the complementary perpendicular force field of magnetism that is created around that flow of linear energy in an electron that creates the relationship between electricity and magnetism. In electromagnetism, in the physical world that you can embody and see with your 5 senses, there is a shape that is similar to this that is called a solenoid. That is the end result of what happens when you take a dipole magnet. You're like, Aurora, now you're scaring us with science words. Don't be scared, everyone. I am here for you. Let's say that this pen represents a dipole magnet, meaning it's got 2 poles, all right? One here and one here. So now we're moving into the concept of duality. This is why this is important stuff. So you've got the North Pole and the South Pole. It's like, wait a minute, we have a North Pole and a South Pole on our planet. That is correct, because you have a magnetic force field that surrounds and interpenetrates your planet. Do you know why? You do know why, because you guys are smart. Because at the center of this planet, there is a crystalline core. But the crystalline core doesn't necessarily look like a piece of clear crystal, like this is quartz, and that's how we mostly conceive of what a crystal looks like. It looks like a giant piece of nickel. I don't have anything here, but it's opaque. It would be opaque, but it is, and it is a metallic. But metals are a form of a crystal as well. They are highly organized molecular structures. And the crystalline core of our planet, as it spins around, just like an electron moving in a line, creates a complementary magnetic field. And that complementary magnetic field is known as Earth's magnetosphere. And you have the North Pole, where Santa lives. I am being very silly. And then you have the South Pole, which is near Antarctica. And of course, these poles sometimes shift and drift because it's not a static object. And you can also look at all sorts of satellite imagery that is a visual representation of the magnetic sensors of what the magnetosphere is doing. as the magnetosphere is actually far outside of the crust of the planet, humans have created sensors to be able to say, like, what's the magnetosphere doing today? And sometimes it looks great, and sometimes it looks like crap, because there's a big, giant extrasolar body that's flying through your solar system right now that is itself magnetic. And the two magnets are fighting with one another. And that's why you are getting a lot of wild occurrences in not only Earth, but your entire solar system. And some of those wild occurrences are known as wobble. That can be the Earth literally wobbling. And also some aspects of minor crustal displacement, like you might remember the catastrophe in Atlantis. That was giant crustal displacement from wobble, but this would be minor crustal displacement. And that actually gives me a good opportunity to speak to the various traumas that might be unhealed in people, in referring to your memories of ancient ongoing Atlantis and the imminent or past ancient catastrophe there, that was a type of pole shift that can be looked at through geological remembrances. Like they can see how molecules are aligned in different geological strata, the layers of the crust when you excavate and look at what was happening. And if you have in this layer down here, all of the magnetic field lines were going in this direction when the iron filings made the sediment in the rock. But then in this layer over here, all of the iron filings are going in this direction. That would show the record that at one point the magnetic influence was coming from over here, but then there was a change and a shift in the ages. And then in the next age, the magnetic influence was coming from over here. So the materialistic science and intellectual information affirms what everybody feels on a deep inner level of their unprocessed trauma, which is that there was a change in the magnetic field around our planet, and that radically changed the topology of Earth's crust and the dry land continents and the interactivity of organisms and ecosystems here, including yourself and the definition of what it is to be a human. So the short answer of all of those words is you're afraid now because in the past or in a time that you remember, Earth's poles flipped from north-south to south-north, and everything jiggled like a ball of wiggly jello, and lots of bad stuff happened. And I'm being facetious and funny about it. It was not fun. But I affirm to you that we are not going to have a similar experience now. Although humans have been able to perceive and even measure the wiggle and the wobbles that have been happening due to transformation in Earth's magnetosphere. And also sometimes this magnetosphere is big, giant, and strong. Sometimes it weakens and it shrinks down and does not offer the same levels of protection and weather stability and protection from cosmic rays and other high energy particles and even meteors, bits of rock and dust coming into the planet. It's like force fields are down, rock and dust is coming in, beating the planet. So you might notice the shifts that are happening and anticipate that the same thing that happened in the past will happen in the future. But I am here to inform you that the ongoing change or pole shift, both on Earth and with the sun, is not north-south to south-north, but is inside to outside. And that is what the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. So I talked about this in class last week. I will never stop talking about this. The inside becomes the outside, and the outside becomes the inside. You're like, it's burned into your brain. You can't forget it. So pretend that my pen is a little ant. And here I am walking on what I define as the outside surface of this lasagna sculpture. And I'm walking along, and I'm on the red road, which means I'm in the realm of the physical. And then I get to this area here, and you can see there's a bridge. This red road connects to this one. But here I end up walking on the inside surface of the sculpture. And then I come back to here, and here there's another bridge, and now I'm walking on the outside surface of the sculpture. I showed you my Mobius strip last week, and it is a very similar concept a one-sided shape or a one-edged polygon. These are seeming impossibilities, but they are not impossible when you look at this higher dimensional topology, which is the study of surfaces. What is the point? You're like, who is the little ant? What is going on here? The little ant is you. The little ant is, you're like, what? Aurora, ha? Yes, just listen. A little ant walks on a surface of a leaf. This is you. You're the little ant. You wake up in the morning over here. You walk on the surface of the leaf of time. And you come to over here. This is midday. You're going to have your lunch. And then you walk on the surface of the leaf of time even further. And then that's your dinner. And then you're going to go to bed. And that is the linear journey through time, experienced as if you are walking on a flat two-dimensional surface. But in order to Flying Rainbow Lasagna or experience a higher dimensional reality, what is necessary is to change the shape of time or to gain the next dimension. Changing the shape of time looks like this. The little ant is still stuck on the surface. It can't jump yet. It just crawls along. But what we can do is bend and fold the fabric of space-time so that something that was far away, dinner time, gets folded until it's very close by. Dinner time and breakfast time touch. And you don't have to get into a metal spaceship to make this happen, or drive in a car, or do anything. Like, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home. You can be sitting in one place and you can oscillate breakfast, dinner, breakfast, dinner, breakfast, dinner. You're literally in two places at the same time. I'm going to say that again. You exist in two places at the same time. We are talking about bending and folding the fabric of space and time, space-time, places, two places, now overlapping at the same time. To emphasize, the singularity here is the overlapping point where everything overlaps at the same time. So this is one loop, but what if you made 10 million uncountable Googleplex gazillion loops, and they all overlapped at the same place? So you are at singularity right now. And you are also here in your life experiencing stuff. But when we fold the fabric of space-time, you experiencing stuff and you at singularity are literally the same place with no need to jump. Another conception of this that is very valid is, what if this little ant suddenly grows wings? And then it is able to fly and to jump off the surface of the flat fabric of the leaf, time space that it's crawling upon, and all of a sudden it can fly. When this little guy flies, he doesn't have to fly to lunch and then to dinner. He can jump up and fly directly to dinner and skip over all of these time events that are between breakfast and dinner. Skip all of this boring stuff, skip all of this arduous trek, and just jump to its destination. And that is what your job is, to gain those wings of multidimensional perception and increased capability, and learn to fly through time. This shape is called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It is not called the sitting on your butt lasagna, or the sleeping quietly on a couch lasagna, or the standing immobile lasagna. It's a flying rainbow lasagna, because what you're doing is flying through time. The adult winged form of an insect, like a butterfly or a dragonfly, is able to jump from leaf to leaf, not even from breakfast to dinner. This would be one life. This is one leaf in a forest, but you have another leaf over here and another leaf over here. What if you can jump off of the surface of your leaf of time and fly to another leaf, and then fly from there to another leaf, and then fly back to your original leaf? That is literally what this shape represents. And this shape represents all of these different time vortexes that have complementary, intertwined, complex existences that are interrelated. And the leaves that you are flying to, it's not like, first I'm on my leaf, and then I'm going to fly someone else's leaf and plunder their resources, and then fly back to my leaf and be like, ha ha ha, like, I ate all your foods, poop on you. No, you're actually flying to yourself, but in a different format. in a different time place, recognizing that you're part of a continuum of consciousness that is continually evolving. So your state of evolution when you are in one lifetime or on one leaf might be different than your state of evolution in a different position or on a different leaf, but it's all you. And so when you recognize that, your motivation to exploit and screw with others should be massively reduced, because you're like, I'm just screwing with myself and I'm just stealing from myself and I'm just treating myself badly. That is what the sane response would be. But of course, there are insane organisms, creatures, and organizations that are like, oh, that's me over there. Okay, great. Free license to exploit myself. It's like, no, that is insane to think that way. Like if you're like, oh, you're just punching yourself in the face, you're like, hooray, I'm punching myself in the face. Let me continue. Like that is bizarre and makes no sense. So wipe away that I even said that, but I can tell that you're intelligent people and you're going to think critically. And you're going to be like, well, some of these guys seem to be doing bad time stuff and messing up themselves. And the answer is yes. That's what happened on Mars. And I've been speaking about this quite openly, and I usually leave it for lesson 18. But those guys on Mars, very, very psychotically twisted culture, not very cultured. Like, I clutch my pearls. They're not very cultured for a culture, barbarians. But they are time barbarians that were like, oh, I'm going to jump off of my leaf. I'm going to plunder someone else's leaf. And they have really no problem, no qualms, no limitations in doing this. And for them, they're like, I'll build a crappy time machine and go wherever I want, do whatever I want to do, and steal from whoever I want to steal from. And they've done a lot of bad things, messing up the fabric of time from that inherently flawed justification. It's all me, therefore it's okay for me to harm myself or screw with myself or violate, or that's even a big one. Technically, I can't be violating because I am myself and I don't need I don't need permission to touch my own face. I, of course, consent. It is me touching me. So they'd be like, I don't have to get consent to fly to that other planet place and touch their face because technically it's me and I can take whatever I want and do whatever I want. That is all very immature. And when you go through this refinery of consciousness enough, you come to levels of maturity and consciousness wisdom where you don't actually want to harm or violate or exploit yourself or anyone in any format. You recognize the continuum of consciousness, and there's a respect for the journey that you're going through and what you're experiencing, and you don't have a sadistic or cruel desire to harm or be malevolent or torturous to anything or anyone, whether you would define it as self or non-self. But at a lower level of immaturity, the consciousness is acting out of self-service and looking for just ways to, in a self-centered way, benefit a small portion of its own ego identity and not benefit the entirety of consciousness. So the flaw of technology, which is what these crazy things on Mars did, they invented technology to make it possible for them to fly from leaf to leaf. All right. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not a form of technology. If you want a lasagna, you have to work. You have to be an expert. You have to build the natural muscles. This is like running a marathon. You have to do lots of training. You have to do lots of muscle building. You have to do lots of inner endurance and get great nutrition. And then you're ready to do it. The time machine that they built on Mars was the equivalent of flying through time, but using some kind of a clank metal spaceship or exoskeleton. So yeah, they built an artificial Merkaba and energized it with all sorts of technology and all sorts of things like that. And it allowed them to jump off of their surface of time, but not giving them, sorry, I'm just turning off this thing because it's driving me crazy. And I do put my thing on privacy mode. I don't know why I'm getting so many notifications right now. Jumping from time to time and exploiting different consciousnesses, without the wisdom to know how to deploy that type of technology. So the idea of learning at the gym and growing the muscles naturally is, as you move through the experience of life and you refine your consciousness, you develop the value system and like the spinal strength of a vertebrate that you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this. These are the things that I choose to do. These are the things that I choose not to do. and you're navigating through life in this very positive and responsible and responsive way of interacting and making relationships. But the less evolved cheaters that are using technology to artificially augment themselves, they're like, I haven't learned or grown at all. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no qualms against hurting other people. Please give me an amplifier for my existence so I can make my mistakes on a bigger level. And that is what they did. They amplified their mistakes to a big, giant level that destroyed their planet and left them as like the wayward spiders, the wayward orphans that didn't have a planet and a place to be. And they're making our life hard because they're like, hey, kid, nice leaf you got there. Mind if I jump on board? And we're all like, yeah, no, actually, we mind very, very much. And please get off of our planet. Please don't do this. This is your ongoing existence. This is the imminent imperilment of the culture of Atlantis, which was a real culture, a real refined place of real people who were real marathon runners who didn't use technology. And all of that translates into your experience of this time, place right now. Okay. Lots of things that I want to talk about. So, oh my goodness. So wait, but let's talk about duality. Maybe we should check the questions. Pardon me. I have the questions covered up because I admit that sometimes I get distracted when I see that things are being communicated over here on the side. You got it. Okay, good. Fantastic. Let's talk about duality. This. Duality is this relationship between the two ends of the magnet, the North Pole and the South Pole. You guys know that if you put north and north together, they will repel, right? And if you put north and south together, they will attract. They're complements to one another. So the concept of a dipole magnet is that you have these two defined areas that are in diametric opposition. They are the complete mirror image and opposite of one another. And that is, we have to talk about duality now as an outgrowth of your experience of the physical world through your five senses. And this actually relates to level 2, lesson 3. That is Flying Rainbow Lasagna and non-duality. So you know that I've blended together already the curricula of level 1 and the advanced level 2 stuff. So today I'm even doing more blending of these two things together. The concept of non-duality and how that is represented by the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Not only bringing together the past and the future, or the established experienced truth of the past and the potentials of time that are undefined and unexperienced yet in the future, but also the journey of consciousness, that as energy is emanated from this source and this central convergence point, and as it begins to circulate through this refinery of consciousness and go on its journey, not 100% of that energy has the same destination. That's a deep truth. It is a hugely flawed presumption in philosophy, spirituality, and religion on this world right now, that when something like everything comes from God, right? This is kind of the bypassing. Everything comes from God. Everything here is God. Everything goes back to God. And I'm like, well, no, technically, oh. And you're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. So what are the parts that are in question there? Everything that is emanated from the source is God? Questionable. It's a questionable presumption. In order to do math correctly, you have to make sure that your foundation proposals are correct. If you have a flaw on the foundation, everything that you build up on top of there is going to be wrong. Like, what if in kindergarten, what if they taught you 1 + 1 = 3? And then you go through your whole education being like, yep, 1 + 1 = 3. And then all of these other equations are going to be wrong. So that is an initial flaw. How can I describe this to you? Because you're like, I thought everything was God. And I thought the source was the overlapping infinity of everythingness. And how can there be God that's not God? And my brain is going to melt. So here's what it's like. If you have a cell that is a somatic cell of your body, you have the outer cell membrane. Then you have inside of that the nuclear membrane. And the nuclear membrane contains in the nucleus super purified water and your DNA. And it's your DNA. It's the story of you. It's more than just the molecular blueprint for who you are, but it's also a blueprint of the edifices of time that you will be experiencing. And it has behavior and different stuff that it does in creating your reality. Sometimes the nucleus of a cell can get hijacked by an invading organism. And in this world, that invading organism is called a virus. Now, I know that there are many people who are exploring new modes of thought in comprehending biological reality, and they question the existence of viruses. I think that this can be a healthy quest for truth, but it makes it difficult for me to have this conversation and use viruses as an analogy to the population that is presently questioning whether viruses actually exist or whether they are a fabrication. And I give you huge credit that you're questioning whether viruses exist or whether they're a fabrication, because most of that questioning has happened since the worldwide health crisis of 2020, where a fabrication that is not something in reality was used as an excuse and justification for the removal of an enormous amount of human rights, rights to privacy, medical freedom, and basic sovereignty of your body, and transformed our whole reality. That was not a virus. It was actually the stuff that's written on my piece of paper that I have over here, because I've been creating. Sorry, I walked off camera for you guys. I'm doing a little project over there. I'm building some new sculptures, so I needed to have some scrap paper to be able to do my calculations on. So sorry to not be in the flow. Was not a virus. It's actually this stuff, changing people's biological realities. So healthy to consider. Do viruses even exist? Or is it all just a silly narrative to cover up something else that's actually giving people a bunch of symptoms and making them sick and maybe even sometimes making them die? That's what actually was going on. I really hope that there will not be any qualms for me to talk about these cupcakes in this way. So let us have this conversation about God and non-duality, presuming the existence of virus as it is traditionally defined by materialistic five-sense science. Viruses are defined as semi-alive creatures or pathogens who do not fit all of the parameters that science uses to define life. According to science, the definition of life means a biological organism that can do certain things, including to eat or to ingest and to reproduce. And viruses cannot eat independently, and they cannot reproduce independently. They require a biological cell in order to eat and reproduce. So viruses can't make more of themselves. If you just have a virus hanging out somewhere, it can't eat. It's like, this is me as a virus. I'm so hungry. And it can't make more of itself, which is positive because you don't want it to just make a whole bunch more of itself. But the virus is like, I'm so hungry. And also I have a burning urge to reproduce and make more of myself. How do I do this? What do I do? And the traditional viral answer is to get a cell through chicanery, if necessary, which is what viruses do. Viruses put on a Halloween costume and they put on a protein coating that makes them appear as if they are part of your body. And then they go into your body and then they knock on not only the door of the cell membrane, they say, knock, 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 let me in. The cell membrane is like the gatekeeper of your cell. And the cell membrane is like, oh yeah, who are you? What are you doing here? And the virus is like, look at my protein coating. I'm wearing a mask. I belong inside of you. And the cell is like, yep, checks out. My mistake. Come on in. All right. So then the virus goes even further and finds the nuclear membrane. And it's wearing this protein coating. And it says, knock, knock, knock. I'd like to come in. And the nucleus is like, authorized access only. Who the heck are you? And the virus is like, here's my authorization badge. I'm wearing this fake protein coating. Please let me in. Maintenance. I'm just the janitor. And your nucleus is like, oh, of course, my mistake. Please come right on in and do your job. And then the virus comes inside of the cell of the nuclear membrane, and then it takes off its disguise. And it's like this. Stupid nucleus. This is me, my evil face. It was me all along. I'm an evil virus. And now I'm here to use your resources. I'm going to eat your stuff and not let you have your stuff. And I'm going to insert my erroneous, harmful DNA patterning into you and make you stop doing your job, which is to make stuff for your body. And you're going to take all those resources and you're going to make stuff for my viral body. And I want you to make more and more and more of me out of all of this incredibly valuable biological resources that you've got. And this is your body saying, but, if I use all my resources to make more of you, then what will happen to me? I will surely die. And the virus is like, yes, this is me with my evil face again. That's exactly what I want to happen. I want to take all your resources and make more and more and more of me until you die. Okay, that was very silly. But that is the traditional story of what viruses do. I bring up all of that silly play acting in order to get you to comprehend, can it be possible for something to be occupying the nucleus of a cell that is not part of your body, that is an invader, that is not a part of your original divine connection or the described behaviors and ideal biological structures that will continue to bring you through life? The answer is yes. And I propose that that is what has happened in time. That if you look at the central convergence point of this time sculpture, that there was stuff at the source that was not supposed to be at the source. Stuff in the nucleus that is not supposed to be in the nucleus. We're talking about an unhealthy cell or a moment of disease in the time structure. So when you think everything at the source is God, and then everything that gets emanated into reality is clearly God, you are presuming that you're in a healthy time structure. What if you're not? What if you're actually in a time structure where the origin of life, the origin of all consciousness, the origins of time possibilities themselves has been diluted or inhabited or hijacked by something that is not the original divine presence? That is what you've got, okay? One of the biggest moments in the triumph of a cell is to recognize that something has invaded the nucleus that is not supposed to be there, to get smart and to kick it the F out. That's when the cell of your body starts to be like, I don't know, like I was doing all of this. Here's my directives up until this point. Here's my blueprints of all the proteins and processes that I'm doing up until this point. All of a sudden, I got this thing in the mail that said, stop doing what you're doing, totally change and reverse, do everything that you're doing now. And you're like, well, now it's telling me to like make a bunch of poop and do a bunch of bad stuff. And it's like, if I do all this bad stuff, like I think it's going to hurt my house, which is called the cell. I think I should reconsider and maybe even talk to the other aspects of the cell. Like, are you guys getting this blueprint? Do you think we should do this? Because at a certain point, your cell has a wisdom in itself that is like, F this BS. I'm not doing this anymore. If I do this, I am going to die. If I listen to these directives blindly, I am going to effing die. And maybe the whole body will effing die. I need to stop doing this immediately. And what the cell does is begins to recognize the erroneous code that the virus is trying to put into your divine, pristine blueprint code. Get the invader out, get the erroneous code out, and return the cell to its healthy behavior, which is not replicating more viruses, but is instead creating life-affirming processes and protein structures for your body, okay? If your cell wakes up with enough time, then it kicks out the invader and your cell stays healthy. If it doesn't wake up within enough time, then what the cell does is like, oh, wah-wah, you lose that Pac-Man. Pac-Man dies. And then hopefully the other cells of your body wake up. When your cell successfully wakes up and sends this information to the rest of the body, you develop something called antibodies. And that's when, because all of your cells talk to each other, your body gets the news. Do not trust this. If someone knocks on your front door and is like, "Hi, like I'm trick or treating, give me some candy or whatever," it's like, no, do not trust that guy at all. Get him away. He's gonna try to break into your house. He's gonna try to hijack you and kill you. And that is called antibodies. And when your body overcomes a disease and you develop antibodies and you have immunity to it, because as soon as the liar, the fake protein structure comes to your front door, you're like, fake protein structure, get the F out, close the door. And if it tries to come inside more, all of your immune system, that would be like Texas Justice. It's got the shotgun. It's like, you come inside of me, you're facing my 12 gauge shotgun, and you're not going to be, you're leaving in a body bag. I'm being very silly. Pardon me if you live in Texas. I'm sure you're not insulted by that at all, but it's true. Texas Justice. Kill the invaders. All right. And that's literally how you stay alive. You have whatever decade you're in, if you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, or 100 years old, you have achieved your lifespan through the wisdom of your body being able to recognize microbial invaders and to kick them out and not allow them to hijack and replicate using your own genetic code. As a brief aside, what is retrovirus? That's when non-lethal viruses come inside of the body, talk their way into accessing your beautiful library of your nucleus and convince the wonderful gyrating, dancing DNA strands in there to incorporate some of the viral genetic code into the dance of your natural DNA. And this is not always something positive. Sometimes it's just self-serving for the virus, because the virus is like this: I'm out here in the cold. I can't eat. I can't survive. I need a body. Does this sound like the invaders from Mars? So maybe I can just kind of go inside of their body. And if I just do these things, then I won't kill them and I get to kind of be alive. Okay, like semi-existence, because viruses are not really truly alive, and they are analogous to, in literal direct analogy, corporations. Corporations, same root word of phonemes and similar aspects of reality. Corporation is considered to be an entity unto itself, especially in the United States, where there was a Supreme Court case that was called Citizens United, that was several decades ago, that literally gave personhood to corporations. So you guys are like, I'm a person, like I have a face, 2 arms and 2 legs. I walk around and have a name. I do stuff and I take responsibility for what I do in the world. Corporations were granted the same rights and recognition in your society in the United States to say like, well, it doesn't have an arm, 2 legs and 2 face. I didn't say that right. 1 face, 2 arms, and 2 legs. It doesn't look like a human, but we're going to give it personhood as if it is a human and allow it to have the same rights and representations as if it's a human, kind of being retrovirally accepted into the social body known as human society. When a virus retrovirally writes its own code into human DNA, in many ways, it is integrated and woven in as if it is a part of you when it's not a part of you. Sometimes this can be causing a huge disease, but sometimes this gives some benefit to you as the host. And that might be a particular characteristic or quality. So, for example, as a mammal, your ability to conceive and reproduce and give live birth is directly related to a particular gene that allows the fertilized egg to lodge in the lining of the uterus and to develop internally in the mammal. Of course, like insects and fish and some other forms of life have their fertilization event external to the body. Like, here, dump out some eggs, dump some sperm on some eggs, mix them all together, and like, what have you got? Like cupcake dough. Like you've got like a new organism, a new person. In order to have live conception and birth in a mammal, there was a necessary genetic integument that had to be implanted into the genetic code so that fertilized embryo could attach to the lining of the uterus. And this was retrovirally woven into what is your present human genetic code and has then become normalized and now is a normal part of who you are and your sense of self. But if you look at other organisms, like there are some other mammals like rabbits and a couple of other mammals that have clearly the ability to give live birth, but they have the origin of their gene for implantation of the successfully fertilized embryo. It is different. It is different than yours because they got the information, but they read their book from a different author. And then they internalized it in a different way. So it is possible to measure with the five senses realm and with the science of the five senses realm to see how this particular ability has come from different directions into various different organisms. The key point is that it was a pro-survival mechanism that added to life. And so your body thought it was a good idea, internalized it, and it ended up keeping your species going. Those are rare. Those are rare. Because sometimes when something gets retrovirally written into the code, it writes bad stuff. That's like you can trace it back and be like, yeah, and then that's the moment that the effery happened, the nonsense, the screwage, the messing up happened right over there. And then you can see, and then everybody after this either developed diseases or mutations or dysfunctions, and then became less healthy and lived a less long life as a result. Okay. So all of that genetic and scientific education to be able to comprehend that maybe there was or is stuff at the epicenter of reality that doesn't belong there. Just as there could be stuff in a nucleus, according to the traditional comprehension of what a virus is and its viral behavior, can be stuff in the nucleus that doesn't belong there. And your body's wisdom wakes up and is like, wait a minute, there's stuff here that doesn't belong here. I better have an immune system response and get that stuff out of me. That is what this shape is doing. The refinery of existence. Lots and lots and lots of stuff comes out from the source. It is emanated as consciousness, but it's hugely erroneous to presume that it's all God and that it's all correctly emanated and that it's all supposed to be here. You actually have to be one of the smart biological body cells that says, I don't think I'm supposed to follow this blueprint because if I do, we will all surely die. How about I think for myself? How about I do something better? How about I have a metacognitive motivational experience where I don't just follow orders. I don't just say, like, I shrug my shoulders. I just work here and do all this very ill-considered stuff, but instead think on a higher level and truly assess what are the healthy and life-affirming behaviors to actually do, okay? So that is necessary in our comprehension of non-duality and what is consciousness doing as it emerges into reality. This reality that you experience, the reality of embodiment matter and energy, is a forum or like, I would say like a theater, but not have it sound fake, but a stage or a platform upon which all of these different potentials manifest and interact. And it is for the process of gaining greater wisdom and selecting away from certain things or energy that are not life affirming. The purpose of life is for you to learn and grow as consciousness. And again, to select away from certain characteristics or approaches or bad math that doesn't belong in reality. And then some of those levels of consciousness that have been emanated into reality, but that are malformed or do not add to life, they do not return to the source. So it is not a same train ticket for everyone. For some consciousnesses emanating into reality, it is a two-way journey. Here is your journey going to your destination, going to, wherever you're going on your trip. And then here's your return ticket to return back home. That is the return to the source and the return to what I call God's self-remembrance. And I recognize that is a strange, it can be defined in many different ways on an anthropomorphic level. But what I mean when I talk about God's self-remembrance is making a complete circuit, getting back to the source over here and being like, Oh, I remember. I'm God having this whole experience and, swirling around amidst myself in order to learn and grow. But not every piece of consciousness is given the return journey ticket. Some consciousness is so flawed that it is literally emanated into reality, like getting something out of the nucleus, like, ugh, like ejectorino, get out. You're not supposed to be here. It gets out into reality and it is not supposed to return. And that journey is really a journey of de-evolution, of de-energizing. De-evolution meaning becoming consciousness or material aspects becoming less and less organized, less coherent, having less longevity and less energy. And that is the journey towards entropy. Entropy is not a gradual process. It is actually an immediate totality state description, but that is the destination for some aspects of extremely flawed consciousness, that they are here in reality to explore and demonstrate exactly how flawed they are, and then get the message, you ain't supposed to be here, get out of reality. And that is what we are experiencing right now. I hope that all of that has given you greater levels of perspective and contextualization for your own journey, that you are, of course, wonderful students in my class. You have a return ticket back to the source. And I am encouraging you, helping you to remember yourself, helping you to reconnect with your own inner resources and your own inner guidance, and really just remembering or presenting again for your own self-remembrance information that you already contain deep inside of you, all right? I don't give you the return journey ticket. It is innate. It's a part of you. But you really have to know that you're in a world right now that is a mixed bag. And there's lots of different types of organisms or consciousnesses, or characteristics is a more neutral way of saying it, because some of them can be fragments, not a full organism, but just a fragment, in the same way that a virus is not really a full organism. It's just a fragment of something that then hijacks and goes into full organisms. All of that stuff, that's like the detritus or the debris that is the end result, side dishes and peripheries, not the main dish of what you want to be experiencing here, and that stuff needs to go to entropy as the final catch-all or destination or resting place of stuff that was never supposed to exist. So in a pristine, perfect experience, that stuff would never be at the source or in the cell nucleus to be emanated or to have an impact on reality in the first place. But you've got problems to begin with, because I've told you many times, everything at the upper levels of reality is not completely perfect. There are dishevelments or problems even at the higher levels of reality. So that also is against some people's expectation, where they think everything is perfect up there, but down here, everything is extremely flawed. And I must be being punished in some way. No, what you're doing is actually helping with this refinement process. The refinement process has to do with what you are thinking and feeling in your own life and in your own DNA, as you separate characteristics, those that are coherent and life-affirming and those that are not life-affirming, and that destabilize you and lead you on a peripheral path to the membrane of death. Bad math. And you initially are encouraged to explore yourself, which is really, this is where you are powerful. Like, this is your country or your nation state, the country of you, whatever is your name. And like, I would be like Aurora Land or Auroraville. All right. So just put your own name in there. And you are responsible for what's happening within your own borders. But at a certain point in your evolution of wisdom, you will recognize that you're not just everything that is within my epidermis, everything that's inside of this force field is me, and then everything else is not me. At a certain point, you get to levels of comprehension and identification that everything is you. And then you are not only allowed to influence other lives and consciousnesses, but you are ordained to, because again, you have recognized that you are intimately connected to all of these other lives and existences, and that there is not a way for you to achieve your greatness and your greatest levels of empowerment and divine connection while still having these great destabilizations in these other organisms around you. Everything needs to come to a greater level of focus and organization. So when people used to come to my studio and I would talk with them all about what this journey is like, I used this as my analogy. The little ant, again. Let's say this is God's finger, all right? And half of the time, the little ant is walking from here, levels of, disorganization, to my fingernail, which would be levels of total organization. Half of the time, the little ant is walking like this, evolving, evolving, evolving. But half of the time, the little ant is going like this, evolving, evolving, evolving. So what has shifted is not the relative journey of the ant. The ant is still moving from my wrist to the end of my finger. But what has shifted is the overarching alignment of where my finger is. This is what the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is doing all the time, shifting up and down, up and down. But really, this can be seen as up and down, but can also be up and side, up and forward, up and side, and up in every position in all these different places. But I already confused you. I'm very, very sorry. Let's make it as complex as possible for everyone who's like a beginner. Should have just kept it easy. Sometimes it's moving upward like this. Sometimes it's moving downward like this. Upward and downward relevant to what? The answer is hyperspace. Don't run out the window. Hyperspace is fun. Hyperspace is the equivalent of the room that contains my thumb. My thumb is time. My thumb is God. Where is God and time located? And the answer is in hyperspace. Hyperspace is the higher dimensional context of a multidimensional descriptive existence that contains the fabric of space-time. And to comprehend that the singularity, which is the source and also the destination, can have different positions relative to hyperspace, is the beginning of the food that you need to be able to do Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Here is the little ant moving towards energy, moving towards organization. And then here is the little ant. Actually, I don't want to turn it upside down. It'll confuse you. Here's the little ant moving towards energy. And then here's the little ant moving towards entropy. Or you could say the whole entire lasagna represents all of these characteristics moving in this direction, all the things that are life affirming. In the little ant, these are all of the thoughts, behaviors, and events that will continue onward and that sustain the consciousness of that little ant. And then moving in this direction and de-energizing are all of the characteristics that are non-life affirming, that actually cause destruction and a de-evolution and momentum, taking momentum away, slowing down of body processes and movements through time. So these are multiple levels of characteristics. When you lasagna inside of you, you're doing at the very same time that you're energizing and getting faster. Some aspects of you are getting closer and closer to your origin of the source and to your identity of God, the supreme intelligence. But some aspects that are inside of you are actually going in the opposite direction or the complementary or symmetrical direction, and they are moving away from divine self-knowledge. They are getting the message, I think I'm actually not God. I think I actually don't exist. I don't belong in physical reality. I should not be using physical resources. And I think that I should just go into a non-being state that is known as entropy. And in entropy, you don't have to try. You're not yearning like, one day, oh, I wish upon a star. One day I'll be a real person. Nope. It is like the relinquishing or the abdication from existence. It is going into non-existence. And with no pity, you should comprehend that some aspects of your own genetic code or some entire organisms or some fragments in reality must go on that journey, where the more that they are exposed to the pure divine light of truth, the more that they get the message, they don't exist. You guys exist. Again, I address you as the best of humanity, the best versions of you, the best, most receptive students, the ones who are doing your math correctly, who are willing to learn and grow when you see that you do your math wrong. You are moving towards continued life. But if I were to address the stuff that doesn't exist, and I don't encourage you to address it because it's very draining and you're adding energy to something when you converse with it. But so that's why I don't do it. But if you were to converse with the stuff that doesn't exist, it would go something like this. Hi, I see that you're completely flawed. And technically, it's impossible for you to even be here. And you definitely should not be eating, drinking, utilizing energy, or having experiences through time, or even using the biological life force energy of flowing through time. You should really go into a state of non-existence. But that's not what the lasagna is. When you dance the lasagna, you do not have long conversations, with a demon where you're like, okay, demon, sit down. Like, look, we need to talk. Like human resources, like, we're gonna need to talk about your job performance and you don't belong in reality. You do not do that because the demons will always be like angry, defensive, like, what are you talking about? I have a right to be here. I'm this and that. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Like, what do you think happens in your body? Do you think that your body just talks nicely to a virus and is like, Mr. Virus, we're going to have a conversation. Technically, you don't belong here. You're going to have to get out of me now. And what would the virus do? The virus would be like, stomping its foot, like, I'm going to be inside and I want this and I want that. Because viruses are wrong and bad and evil. They lie. They wear protein coatings just to get inside of you. They're not good people, all right? So you don't have a whole educational conversation, no negotiation, none of those things with either a virus or a fragmented particle or a demonic consciousness or an aspect of your own self that shouldn't be in existence. You just take energy away from it. No conversation. Take energy away from it. That means biological energy, bio-life force energy, time energy, consciousness energy, resources energy. You starve it out, just as in your own body, a viral aspect needs your food because it can't eat on its own, needs your reproductive energy because it can't reproduce on its own. Same stuff with the demonic or fragmented or erroneous consciousnesses that don't belong in reality. Removing energy from them is the only conversation that you'll have. Be like, don't even talk to me. I'm just taking energy away from you. That's it. Because otherwise you get into a whole interchange that further entangles you with that consciousness. The most merciful thing you can do is to disentangle your support from that consciousness and have it go to entropy. That is what I mean when I say to send something to entropy. I don't mean that you have a whole fight with it, like with Lord Voldemort, like pew, 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 and then I send you to entropy. That's not what it's like. What you do is withdraw your energy. And your energy is also, most critically here, the energy of observership. When you think about creative life force energy, maybe you think about sexual energy, because that's what it is to be a mammal and what it is to create the next generation. But I'm really talking on an esoteric level about your observership, your consciousness that creates reality and matter from moment to moment as you move through time, as you move through the larger potentials of waveforms of realities that can be experienced and coalesce them into matter forms that you can actually experience with your five senses. Your observership is constantly creating reality. Male or female, you are constantly giving birth to reality in each moment with your observership. And when you send something to entropy, you withdraw your observership from the validation of and vivification of that invalid and essentially dead or non-existent stuff. So yes, you disbelieve it, you unbelieve it, you withdraw stuff from it. And a lot of the teachings that I have here are all about teaching you about stuff that doesn't exist. And the idea of no thing that non-exists. And when you are at infinity, I talked with you about that in the past couple of weeks. Here you are on the bullet train of infinity. You're moving at infinite speed. That's even faster than light speed. You're moving so fast that really there is nothing around you that is not moving at light speed and beyond. You're like, what? Those words made me confused. I know, because it's hard. We're getting into the levels of language where it's hard to even talk about this. But you are surrounded by no thing. There's no stuff. And the no stuff has no place, no momentum, no movement, no context, no interactivity. The only stuff that exists is you and everything else that exists moving at infinity speed. You don't have anything to compare yourself to. There's no contextual relevance point to be able to compare and be like, wow, like I exist, but you don't exist. And like kind of like going fast past all of the things that don't exist and being like, well, don't you wish you were me? Nanny poo poo, don't you wish you were on the bullet train? Here we are, like sipping champagne on the bullet train, being like, we're so cool. Not you, though, not you. No, the stuff that's not you, that's not sipping champagne on the bullet train of infinity, literally doesn't exist. So there's no way for you to kind of condescend to it or refer to it or think about it or acknowledge it in any way. There's no way for you to interact with it with your consciousness. There's no need for you to interact with it with your consciousness. Think about it like whatever, like right now you're in a moment in time and you're experiencing all the stuff that you're experiencing, but you are non-experiencing all the stuff that you are non-experiencing. That's all the stuff that is unstuff. That is not non-being, that is no thing. So you only are experiencing the positive stimulations of the timelines that actually exist. And the timelines and the stuff that doesn't exist, you are not experiencing. And that is the ultimate. When you get to that level of experience, that is when you can drop your need for strong boundaries. So it is spiritual bypassing too early in the game and erroneously declare, I am one with everything. God is one. God is everything. All consciousness is together. Everything is in this God soup and it all belongs here. That is bypassing because the truth is not everything belongs in the soup, right? When you make soup, you chop up vegetables and other things. And some of the stuff that you chop up goes in the soup, but some of it doesn't go in the soup. Some of it you're like, yep, this is like peelings, seeds, indigestible stuff that we don't put that in the soup. You put that in the trash. All right. So now beginning to conceive of entropy and the state of non-being as cosmic trash, cosmic receptacle for the stuff that doesn't exist and has no reason or purpose for being. And if it is in existence, creates a imbalance in the fabric of space-time. Okay, so wait. Charlie B, thank you for being here. And beautiful, long-time student says, this makes a lot of sense. Fragments and detritus and debris must be removed during the consciousness refinement process. That is the whole purpose of being a refinery of consciousness. To not identify and remove those non-divine aspects is to not do your job in emphasis in refining consciousness within the time field. Absolutely. Beautifully said, beautifully articulated. That's exactly it. So yeah, it also, I think, gives good emphasis, Charlie B, your comment, to the sense that you have a job and a purpose here. So, again, I'm very critical of the philosophy perspective known as strict determinism, because in that sense of experiencing the world, people do not feel that they have a job. They feel like it's all God's job. They're kind of looking around to the world with their hands on their hips like, this place really stinks. It's not right. That's not right. That's not right. That's not right. You're like, it's not my job. Somebody up there, you did something wrong and it's supposed to be better. But when we comprehend that we are here in this refinery of consciousness for a purpose, that is to do our job and to make these distinctions between different forms of energy, levels of consciousness, and qualities of life-giving or life deforming, then it becomes our job. It becomes our job, although we are working together with God. It's not only one side's job. It's not like, okay, God, like get out of here. I'm doing the job. You just sit there on your butt and do nothing. Sit there on your divine butt and do nothing. I'll do all the work. That would be out of balance as well. So we are both doing all of the work, both yourself as God, the pinnacle of all intelligence everywhere, is doing the work, and you as an aspect emanated into reality of God, the divine presence, are also doing that work. And that's essential. You're working on every level to return the system to its pristine origins and make it into what it actually is supposed to be. And that is a place where there is only the things that are supposed to exist. That's the bullet train at infinite speed at infinity. Now, when you are on the bullet train of infinite speed of infinity, you are no longer in the process of determining what is me versus what is not me, what is God versus what is not God, what is life affirming versus what is not life affirming. You've done the job, you've done all the work. And then you can drop your boundaries and be in unity consciousness. That is when it is appropriate to say, hooray, I am God, God is me, God is in all of you, God is in everything I see, because the only things that you see are the people that are sipping champagne on the bullet train of infinity at infinite speed and beyond. That's the only stuff that's there. So you're not there yet. And that's essential. The best information that I can give to you is that you are not there yet, and that you must effort in order to be there. It is bypassing to declare yourself there prematurely. And that one of the ways you can get there is through flying rainbow lasagna. So this is not like saying, how do you get from point A to point B? Climb into a metallic spaceship and fly from point A to point B. This is about how do you get from this flawed reality structure, or this place where everything is very questionable and moderately screwed up, to a perfect world, a paradise world where everything is great and nothing is screwed up. And the answer is through the activity known as the flying rainbow lasagna. It brings you into that successfully refined state where you have taken out all the trash, and now all that you have is the 100% purified gold with no impurities. So I want to talk about duality and how duality is woven into the biological container that you presently inhabit. That duality is really a level of maturity that you evolve beyond. That level of maturity was very appropriately achieved so that you can navigate the world. Because right now you're in a world where you have stuff that's good versus stuff that's not good, stuff that's life affirming and stuff that's not life affirming. In your biology, you perceive this mostly through your visual sense, but also to another lesser extent, tactile sense, comparing one thing to another thing. That is what duality is. So first of all, let's think about some of your sensory and cultural paradigms. Sensory would be hot versus cold, light versus dark, fast versus slow. And then let's look at your cultural paradigms. That's the moralistic sense of good versus evil. The moralistic sense of good versus evil is the direct expression of the inherent presumptions that come from your visual sense. And humans are predominantly visually oriented. And of course, if anyone's in my audience and you're visually impaired, of course, like you experience the world differently, you might be more auditory or you might be more tactile. But majority of humans are visually oriented. Like in contrast, let's talk about like my beautiful dog. She is primarily olfactory oriented, nose. Next sense is ears, way on down the line, visual. All right. So dogs perceive the world in a different way. And the olfactory sense is very different because it's not like there is a clear boundary where here is where you smell a thing, and then over here, this is where you don't smell a thing. That's not how smells work. Here is where you smell a thing very strongly, and then here's where you smell it less and less and less and less and less. And here's where you get like a bare little amount of it, okay? That's really different than the visual perception that we have where there are hard edges, all right? So the hard-edged visual acuity of humanity allows us to make very clear boundaries of where is a thing versus where is not a thing. So look at my face on your screen. You have some areas where the light is hitting my skin and is making a very bright reflection to your eyes. You're like, yep, there's a thing there. I can see there's stuff there. But then there's this area here where I'm putting my pen where there is a darkness. There is not light that is bouncing back to your eyes. There is not a sense of perceiving light in these areas. We would call that, non-illuminated areas. And you're like, yeah, because there's no stuff there. And you're right, there's no stuff there. Like my face is here, my face is not here. But look at how close they are. That's like a centimeter away. Face, no face, face, no face. Very, very different than the sense of, let's say, you're an animal, like a dog, and you're hunting, and you're like, I kind of smell something over here, but then I smell it much more strongly over here. Like it's in both places, just with different dilutions. So light and our perception of light is not the same. We really perceive it as areas of light versus areas of no light. Look up at the night sky if you live in a place where it's not too much light pollution, and you can see this very easily. Pinpoints of light, pinpoints of brilliance, and then lots of areas where there's no light. And your eyes are engineered to very miraculously be able to perceive these distinctions. I did a little bit of research. I read about all sorts of things. 8 photons. Your eyes are so highly calibrated that when you look up at the night sky, you cannot really perceive individual photons, like one little photon, but 8 photons. That is how finely calibrated your retinas can be when you perceive light in a place like, a room of darkness or a place that's not illuminated. You can perceive that minimum quality of light, which is really, really quite extraordinary. And how does your body architecture do this? Hold on a moment. I just need to hydrate. My hand represents your retina, which is at the back of the eye. Should I draw this for everyone? I should. Great. Okay, so first let's draw an eyeball. That's meant to be your cornea. And this is meant to be like the rounded part of your eye. Doing pretty good so far. Ooh. And this is your optic nerve, okay? And so let's draw this to represent your iris. And then let's draw this. It's in cross section, but that's meant to be your pupil. All right, pretty good. And this is meant to be your iris, in the opposite direction over there. Okay, it's a pretty good example of what an eyeball looks like. Now over here, let's draw your retina. This is your retina. And you can see that I just did make a little space for you to experience your optic nerve, because that's what happens. There is actually an area where there's no receptors on your retina because you have your optic nerve there, and that's known as your blind spot. So there's no receptors there. Now let's draw a bunch of rods. Here's, the cones. Everyone, all these little red dots represent your color receptors. Those are your cones. And we'll give you some green dots because those are also color receptors for your cones. And you have a focal point. That's where you have lots and lots and lots of receptors. You guys know this from your experience. You have a focal point in your eyesight, then you have your peripheral eyesight. In your focal point, you have lots and lots and lots of receptors, and they're able to perceive a lot of light in one place. Then around the edges, these are your rods. Can't effing see. Hold on a second. These little guys in gray are your rods. They have a different shape, and they are mostly around the periphery. They are not in the central fovea or focal point. And your rods don't have that much acuity, but they have great sensitivity. Those are the aspects of your retinas that can pick up 8 photons and see something very dim in the night sky. And your hold on, let me just get a different color so I can kind of circle these things. Your focal point over here is mostly for very brightly illuminated situations where you can make a big distinction, like I was showing you, like my face versus the area next to my face where there is no face. And this is all really giving you a viewpoint of reality about hard-edged objects and thing versus no thing. If I expand, this is my little shorthand for expand that out. So now we're looking at a super microscopic viewpoint, my words are not working, emphasized, expanded viewpoint of what's happening on the surface of your retina. Okay, this is from a cross section. So let's say this is a cell that's in the retina. And what the cell has is all of these different receptors. When one of the receptors gets stimulated, it stands way up. And you have all of these other receptors that might be next to it that are shorter. And what your body is able to do is to do a calculation. Like, you might not think you're not that good at math, but you're actually really, really good at math, because every time you look at the world, what your biology is doing is making a calculation between this versus this. And that line, that vertical red line that I just drew, is how much light your body is calculating you've just perceived. All right. That is the comparison. Thing versus no thing in your visual field of what you're looking at. Your biological response is stimulus over here versus no stimulus. So duality has to do with comparing a thing to a thing. We're comparing this to this. We're comparing the information that comes from tiny apparatuses on your eyes to the information that comes from other tiny apparatuses on your eyes. And this is very fair as a way to be able to develop a viewpoint of the world that makes sense and helps you to navigate. Because if you live a primal existence, you have to know, like, where's there stuff that I can eat? Like, if you're reaching for berries, you have to be able to be like, oh, like the berries are right here. I'm going to reach for them. I'm going to grab them. And then they're this far away from my mouth. I'm going to put them in my mouth. All right. Or more complex things like being able to use a projectile weapon. You're going to hunt. You're going to send a projectile weapon at, the animal that's over there. And you're going to have to see where it is and how far away is it. All right. Let's talk about depth perception, because you comprehend most people in our world have two eyes, binocular vision that gives depth perception, because the viewpoint of one of your eyes is slightly different than the viewpoint from your other eyes. So within one eye, your brain is comparing the stimulus of various different cells, this cell versus this cell, or this receptor versus this receptor, and creating a sense of light versus dark, even in monocular vision. But when you have binocular vision, you also have your brain, which is doing some complex calculations at every moment, comparing this image of the world, how I see things through this eye, and this image of the world, how I see things through this eye. And then your brain does something amazing. It knits together those two totally independent images and creates a holistic worldview that includes the sense of depth, calculating how far away something is from you or from other objects, and making it possible for you to navigate spatial reality. You're really building an inner comprehensive picture of space-time based upon these calculations that your brain is doing when you have two eyes and when you're able to receive that level of information. But that's a dualistic view. Your whole entire viewpoint of the visual field around you is dependent upon this eye versus this eye, and this viewpoint versus this viewpoint. And you might not cognitively say, like, I'm going to embody a dualistic viewpoint. Like, good morning, I'm going to drink some coffee today and then embody a dualistic viewpoint. No, it is an innate part of the worldview that you've constructed just from having this type of a body. Let's say you're not in a human body. What if you're in the body of a beautiful butterfly? And butterflies do not have eyes the way that humans have eyes. Although they have two eyes, their eyes are called composite eyes. And what they have is not just one lens as humans do, but they have a multifaceted lens, much more similar to, I have to really stretch over here for me to be able to grab this, because I have it in my window where it gets beautiful sunlight and it makes beautiful rainbows all around. This is much more of what the lens of like a bee or a butterfly is shaped like, multifaceted. And what that gives to the brain of the butterfly is a multifaceted view of reality. So you might be comparing one eye versus your other eye, two things, thing versus thing, chocolate versus vanilla. The butterfly is comparing, like, let's say 12,000 facets from this eye versus 12,000 facets from this eye. And then its brain is having to integrate all of those different facets into a holistic viewpoint of what the space reality looks like around them. They have a very different worldview than our human-based, dualistic worldview. There's no right and wrong. There's no judgment. There's just the recognition of how much your biology has influenced your expectations and your worldview. And of course, butterflies are also multidimensional and nonlinear. They don't walk along the ground like this. They fly from place to place. So they have a much more multi-dimensional perspective just baked into the origins of who they are in their biology. But now let's talk about moving beyond the dualistic perspective. In order to do that, you need an extra piece of information. Duality is basically two things: this thing versus this thing, two things. And to move into a higher dimensional perspective, you need at least one more thing. So in your own biology, that is the addition of what I am always pointing to here. Although in sometimes I am non-literal, I'm esoteric, but we call this your third eye. It is pointing to your pineal gland deep inside of your skull. It is also pointing to the concentration point of perspective that comes through your pineal gland. It is another input point of data. God, data comes from this eye, and then data comes from this eye, but also data comes from this eye. And when you have that additional data point, you're beginning to build a multi-dimensional viewpoint of reality, much like the multifaceted viewpoint of a beautiful winged insect. And I'll teach you all about what the higher dimensional viewpoint looks like. But first, I have to talk to you about another optical phenomenon that is a basic part of your biology that is called persistence of vision. You might sometimes mix this up with this famous painting called Persistence of Time that was made by Salvador Dali that shows melting clocks. It's not the same, but I always think of that. Persistence of vision, to clarify, is the optical phenomenon that allows us to perceive movement in time. Our eyesight actually is perceiving static images at the Planck length. What is the Planck length? It is 10 to the negative 32, a very, very tiny increment of measurement that is considered the smallest increment of measurement you can measure while still measuring stuff that has not become cut so small that it has become an abstraction beyond matter. It is the smallest slice of the pie of reality or cake of reality that you can cut reality into and still even call it reality. Because when you cut it even smaller than that, what you end up getting is pure energy or the quantum potential for matter, but not matter itself. So it's the smallest piece of stuff that we can cut matter into and still define it as matter. And when you are moving through time, you experience these frozen moments of the perception of each potential position of material in the time field as a frozen moment, as a series of frozen moments that you tie together with the integument of your perception. This is again called persistence of vision. So you guys are very familiar with this. If you have ever seen a movie in the movie theater, not these more recent digital movies, so maybe not all of you have seen this, old-fashioned movie with a giant film strip that goes through a projector that projects light through these individual static images and flashes them on a screen so fast that I would call it your brain, but it's really your system of perception, blends together those discrete individual images into a holistic worldview that includes movement. Here you see my hand moving across your screen. Now I'm going to confuse you now because your screen is not made out of film. Film is like from the early 1900s and up until the time that like VHS and video stuff, digital photography was invented, I guess sometime in the 1980s. But all prior to that, moving images were created through the very fast presentation of a series of static images. And that includes ancient form of animations. You might have done an ancient form of animation on the edge of your math book when you were bored in class, when you didn't want to listen to the teacher. And so you drew maybe little stick figures and stuff like that in the margins of your textbook, right? And then flipped through it, flip, 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 flip. This is not really a thick enough book, but you have to have a nice thick book. And you flip, 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 and it makes a type of animation. It's called the flip book. If you've never done it, you don't have to get a math book to do it. You get a little pad of paper, but it has to be kind of fat. And then you draw these simple stick figures or whatever abstractions on there. And as you flip through it, your eyes perceive the individual images and smear them together so that it looks like motion is created. In the not so ancient world, maybe like 600 years or so ago, they invented something called a zoetrope. Zoe meaning life, trope meaning wheel of life. It was a rounded barrel that spun around like this, like a cylinder, and had regular vertical slits cut in it. And then you would take almost like a film strip, a piece of paper cut into squares and individual segments, and each square contained a figure that when you put it into the inner diameter of, the inner circumference, the inner lining of the drum, and then give it a spin, the flashing rate of the vertical slits would fool your brain into thinking that you're looking at an animated image. And you might have seen some of these also in recent times, some musicians that have their stuff created on old-fashioned record albums, like a piece of plastic that you put horizontally with a needle that goes around it. You can get those special printed now, and they have them sometimes printed with different figures around the perimeter of the album. And when you put it on the record player and it's going around and around and playing the song, it looks like there's little animated figures that are moving around on there, which is pretty cool. All of this is an optical illusion. There are not actual figures dancing on the record. The little guy on the edge of your math book is not actually moving or doing anything. There's not actually a animal or a horse that's running around in the inside of the wheel of life. It's an optical illusion. The optical illusion is literally your sense of self creating a higher dimensional connective material. That is what integument is, from moment to moment. You tie together these seemingly discrete moments into a continuum. That is the higher dimensional viewpoint. So again, your eyesight in some levels is meant to create distinctions. Face versus no face. But your eyesight also has a holistic response or habit that is to tie together static images to create a moving viewpoint of time. In old film strips, like the ones from Charlie Chaplin, the beginning of the 20th century, the people's movements looked very jerky and they looked very silly. And that's because they didn't have the flicker rate exactly right. It didn't look like smooth, fluid, realistic movements. At a certain point, the film industry optimized and learned that if you flash 26 frames per second, that is the optimum rate to fool the brain through optical illusions to think that there is an actual moving image on the flat screen. And now what you have in the world of digital technology, so old anode cathode ray screens. Those are the type of TV screens that were fat and had like glass that was kind of at the front and a little thing that shot energy from the back to the front. I'm not describing it well. Not flat screen TVs, the original screen TVs from the 1950s onward. Those types of TVs, they have a refresh rate that's not the whole entire image at once. In the movie screen, it's the whole entire image. Here's a frozen image, and then here's the next frozen image, right? And your brain would fill in the blanks between Aurora in this position and Aurora in this position and make it look like I'm moving from here to here, right? But once television was invented, the refresh rate went literally from the top of the screen across in these left to right movements, and it does it so fast that your eye cannot really perceive it consciously, and it changes the image. So when I'm like this, it would change the image halfway like this and show you the other image like this, but the bottom half of your screen is still showing the original image like this. You get a blending of these two images, so it's not the same. And then, of course, once digital videography and the more modern LCD screens were invented, they act in a totally different way in how they move pixels, change things around, and create these various static images that your mind melds together. So the modern technology is not a perfect analog. That's why I don't use it as the example, but the original film technology is perfect in being able to be an analogy to what is happening in your chakras. Your chakras are wheels of life. They are whirling vortexes of energy, and they create a movement that ties together the static moments of time that you are perceiving. Because you're not just like in a movie theater, you are looking at a picture that a camera took in a series. But what are you looking at in reality? Not a picture that a camera took. You're looking at a moment of time. Each moment of time as being a discrete, non-moving image. And that's why I had to bring up separated at the Planck length, because what you actually have is like a series of train cars shaped like this. Just do a super fast drawing. So, okay, but no, that's not this one. Okay, here's image and moment one, image and moment two, image and moment three, image, infinity, right? And these are individual discrete moments. Like here's a stick figure guy. And here's a stick figure guy. Oh, look at that. He moved all the way down here. He's in a different position on the screen. And then stick figure guy moves all the way up here. So when you see this, your system of perception ties together these moments that are cut apart and separated at a very, very tiny slice, 10 to the negative 32. These are like the train cars tied together. And this is also your system of perception tying things together. So what you see looks like a person who moves from up here to then down here and then moves all the way up to here. Like you would see a person jumping up and down in reality, because your system of perception has tied together those individual discrete moments into, again, I keep using the word holistic, into a complete image of what is happening, okay? So that is the beginning of the transcendence of duality. Now let's talk about linearity versus transcendent viewpoint. In the linear viewpoint, you see your events of your life. First, this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened to infinity. But when you have the multidimensional perspective, what you actually perceive is or are all of those individual moments cut up. So you had like, here, it's a film strip. This is a film strip where you've got all of these individual moments or images or cells, okay? That whole big long line of them, because there's millions of them in one 2-hour long movie. But what if you cut them? What if you cut all of these guys up along every border, boundary, dividing line, and then you created a big giant layout on a table? So here's a big giant table, like a film editor. That was terrible. Oh my goodness. Okay, try it again. This is a table. You are the film editor. And what we're going to do is make a big giant grid. I'm not going to draw everything, but you can imagine, because it just drives me crazy to try to make these squares perfect. But you can imagine that I've drawn the entire grid of your reality, okay? But I'm just going to draw in a little bit. And then this is dot, 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 dot in the middle. All right, so you've got it. This is your birth. This is the first moment of your life over here. In fact, let me get a better color so that you can kind of see this better. Let's get this color. That is the first moment of your life. That is birth. And then this is the last moment of your life. This is your death. And all of the stuff in between is every single moment of your life that you have experienced between the beginning and the end point. And when you have a linear experience of reality, you move from birth over here, just like an ant, little ant walking on the surface of the leaf, walk, 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 walk until finally you get over here. And then this is the last moment when you die. But when you have the higher dimensional viewpoint, what you are able to do is see everything that happens in your life at one moment, as if you're looking at everything at the same time. This is the higher dimensional perspective of what time is. You see the very first moment that you ever experienced life, and then let's imagine that this is like an English book, like you go along through this, and then you go along through this, and you go along through this, and you experience all of these moments. And then here you're a teenager, and then here you're middle-aged, and here you're having a baby, and then here's this, and here you're an old person, and here's where you die. And you see everything in your life all at once. Now, I drew this as a square so you could comprehend it as being on a table and involving these, square pieces of film, but it really is shaped like this. It is shaped with curvilinear forms. I know the lighting in here is not that great for you able to see this color. Curvilinear forms. And when I shared with you about vortex-based math and about mapping the outside wrapping of the porous skin and the numbers and their relationships on the skin and to one another, the numbers are not static. They move and they flow, like energy flowing around the outside of this donut shape and flowing to the inside and then emerging from the outside again. And those constantly shifting numbers and their relationships and causality structures to one another are directly analogous to the editor's table, with every single moment of the movie of your life presented at the same time. When you look at this, when you are literate, when you have activated your third eye and you not only have sight, but you are literate, meaning that you can comprehend what you see. Like when you're a tiny child, you can see words and letters, but you're like, I'm just a tiny child eating applesauce. I have no idea what these things are, but I can see that they exist, right? Then at a certain point, you're like, oh, I'm in kindergarten. And this thing that they keep on showing me for many years, I find out actually is a letter. That's a thing that means something. Now I know what I'm looking at, and you become literate. Initially, when your light body awakens, you'll perceive these patterns of time and you'll be like, something is there, but I'm just a kid eating applesauce. I don't know what this thing is. At a certain point, you become literate, and then you can comprehend these complex numerical patterns that are going around the toroidal energy field, and you can relate them to your comprehension that these aren't randomnesses. They are highly complex and orderly patterns that have to do with causality. Causality means, like, if you want cupcakes, first you buy the ingredients, then you make the dough, then you bake it, then you eat the cupcakes. You cannot simply start with cupcakes, and you cannot skip over the interim, go directly from ingredients to cupcakes. The cupcakes are the end result of the causality factors of buying ingredients, performing mixing functions, and adding heat. So these are things in time. Your things in time don't just happen randomly. You think like, oh, I'm going to get hit by a car, some random thing will happen. No, what would happen would be cupcakes. That would be the end result of all of the other factors that added up to getting smashed by a car and dying. That's why it's not a random or arbitrary thing that happens at all. It is the cupcake that is the end result of all of these other ingredients coming together. And when you are literate, you can read the patterns that are all of these different factors coming together in order to create event structures in your life or in someone else's life. So it's a huge attainment to become literate. Please comprehend that there are very, very few literate, higher dimensional perceiving people in this world at this time. It's actually very painful to be a higher dimensional perceiving person in this time amidst musicians who are very tone deaf and people who are very ignorant of causality structures and the folly that they go through when you are literate and you can see what's going on. Like if you're literate, you can read. Oh, Aurelia is agreeing with me. She's like, "Yep. Oh, girl, girl." I wait, wait. And I have drank all of my water, and I do not drink wine. But I'd be like, "Girl, like, oh, let's talk. We can talk about this." Yeah, you can relate because even if you have a small amount of literacy, like maybe you don't know enough words to read War and Peace or Shakespeare, but you have enough literacy to be able to read like see spot run, run spot run, that would still drive you somewhat crazy to be like, can't these guys read like see spot run? Like, if you do that, you will die. Don't do that. Like, it can be very exasperating because they can't read. They cannot read. They are not even pre-literate. A lot of people don't even know that letters of the alphabet exist. They're kind of like, there's just a bunch of nonsense around me. Life has no meaning and no purpose. God, why are you doing this to me? You know, like outsourcing all of their outrage and blaming everyone else. And it's like, oh, technically, you have a lot to learn. And this stuff happened because of this stuff over here. And if you didn't do this, this wouldn't happen over here. And if you do this, then bad things will happen over here. Now let's go back to those insane and very naughty things that lived on Mars. They were not literate at all. Now this is not a comedic, dishing about how people are so silly or so foolish. They were totally illiterate. They couldn't read the instructions on reality. They blew up reality. You can tell from my face and my demeanor, I am not impressed. No, very, very dangerous. In fact, a lot of what they did as illiterates, they didn't even innovate that technology. Someone else was like, hey, man, hold my beer. Watch me while I give firecrackers to a bunch of kids and then see what happens. This is going to be really funny. Not very funny at all. Hugely irresponsible. So a lot of the technology being sprinkled like, sprinkles or whatever, retro-engineered, not innovated and developed in their culture. They have the wisdom and perspective to be able to truly comprehend and develop responsible time distortion technology in their world, but someone else gave them firecrackers and was like, here, take this, go blow shit up. Oh, sorry. Sometimes people watch with kids. Go blow some stuff up and see what happens. And the answer was bad stuff. That affects us to this day. Their illiteracy and irresponsibility affects us to this day. It is not positive and it is not acceptable at all, because part of causality and being literate in a higher dimensional sense is also taking responsibility. When people are illiterate and they do not take responsibility, they're like something hits them in the back of the head. And they're like, where did that come from? Nothing is fair. Shake my fist at God. And the truth is, like, you threw that brick at yourself. It traveled across time, space, and dimensionality, and then you hit yourself in the back of the head. Like, you literally just harmed yourself. And that is, not something that you blame someone else for. Sorry if I seem distracted for a moment. It's because I smell smoke, but it's kind of a rainy day where I live, and I think that it is just someone nearby getting their fireplace going. I don't think that we're in imminent peril. But when you smell smoke, it always makes you kind of perk up and be like, wait a minute, what am I smelling? What is happening here? So apologies for being distracted in the moment. But yeah, no, these irresponsible and foolish and self-destructive and sometimes sadomasochistic and sometimes cruel, ignorant aspects of consciousness go around doing all sorts of things. Then it blows back to them, boomerangs back to them. And then they're like, wow, poor me. Why did all that stuff happen to me? I blame someone else. And the answer is blame yourself, because you did it to yourself. But they can't see because they're not literate. And then sometimes they never learn. And learning is really a choice. Like, if I can emphasize that enough, like, you come here as part of the contract or expectation for educational experiences in reality, and learning is a choice, not the response to be like, I back away from any responsibility, none of this is my fault, and I refuse to learn anything, like the sweat hog response to reality. The surly student who refuses to learn or grow and is hugely inconvenient to the rest of the class. So wait, question over here. from Tom Flynn, and thank you for being here, says, what is the name of the company website where you get your crystals? I believe you said they also make the paper that you place on your glasses for sun gazing. Yes, yes, yes. I'm so pleased to describe and tell you all about this. I don't want to get my crystals out at the moment because the truth is I keep them in my bra, and I don't want to do that on camera. But the name of the company is IBA, EIBA, IBA Wellness. They're in Germany and they're quite amazing. I can show you my little magical sunglasses, a la they live. So this is like a plasticine type of paper that has the crystal dust impregnated upon it. And it's actually not safe for driving. Like you cannot wear these and see really anything, but I wear these for sun gazing. And when I put them on, it blocks out all the fake 5G crapola and I actually see the true sun. And also, when you see holographic fake planes in the sky that are not actually fixed wing aircraft, that are actually cloaked orbs, you put on these glasses and you look at them, the illusion disappears. Like you don't see the planes anymore. It's like plane, no plane, plane, no plane. Like these are really amazing. So the company didn't make them as glasses. I innovated that because the company made it as a healing that you would put on your skin. So the paper is very accessible. It's less than $100 for you to get like a little piece of that paper. And it lasts and it works for many, many years. Like as long as you don't, wad it up and make it very wrinkled, it will last for a long time. And it's excellent for just basic healing and pain release. So you can put that across your eyes. You can put it across your skin. You can put it any place where you have pain. And so I, a couple of years ago, had been gifted with some of this paper, and it also comes with a linen bag. And my intuition was like put it across your eyes. So I put it across my eyes. I had my eyes open and I was looking at the sun. And I'm like, oh, how about I do some sun gazing through this? And I saw the original sun again. Like we have not had the original sun in the sky for quite a long time. And it's been like very, very, I've been very hungry for my true food, which is real sunlight. And when I put that across my eyes and looked at the sun, I was like, I'm seeing the real sun. What do I mean? I saw the real sun with the concentric rainbow rings all around it. And I didn't see the horrible LED like bright whiteness that I usually see in the sky, which is why I usually these days do my sun gazing with my eyes closed or mostly closed. And that's why you got to protect yourself because I think you can get overexposure from whatever is the artificial light that's in the sky. So I don't really stare directly at the sun at this time, although some people do. And I want you all to know, do what is right for you, but just do it safely so that you don't overstimulate your retinas because the retinas are sensitive and can be harmed by that. So I squint or sometimes use my hat or something else or these glasses as a filter, right? And also, I'm out in the sun a lot, and I put on a mineral sunscreen, non-nano titanium dioxide that is going to protect me without chemicals. You can also experiment with things like coconut oil, what else? Carrot seed oil. There's a bunch of natural oils, but you've got to find something that doesn't make your skin break out, isn't a bunch of bad chemicals, and some of the particulate mineral sunscreens is at a nano scale, which is not optimum because it enters the bloodstream and can junk up your brain. You don't necessarily want that. So again, I protect my skin. The short story is I protect my skin, even though I'm totally a light-based being and a sun eater. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about our eyes. We wouldn't have to worry about our skin. Oh, and I didn't tell you, I wear contact lenses that have a UV coating on them because that's what all of the contact lenses just come with that naturally. So you do have to protect your eyes, even though I recognize that sunglasses themselves are non-optimum because they block out so much of the optical light that it influences the pineal gland negatively and makes it so that your body doesn't step up its defenses, which is the melanocytes that respond in your skin and also your sebaceous glands to create the oils that protect your skin when you're in the presence of the sun. So to protect your eyes, much better to use a hat with a brim that kind of gives you some shade as opposed to the sunglasses that block out certain rays. Someone else, I can already sense this, is asking, what about those blue blocking glasses? Should I be wearing them? Are they positive and good? And the answer is yes, they are positive and good. I looked into all sorts of different versions of it, and the really good ones are a bit expensive, which is why I haven't bought them, which is why you don't see me wearing these orange colored glasses. And also I don't really like to have to wear glasses on my face just for a variety of reasons. It's not comfortable for me. So what I do is I yellow shift all of my electronics. I'm staring at the computer a lot in the work that I do. And you can also kind of see the lighting from my light bulbs over here is very yellowish golden orange because I have only incandescent bulbs. So I yellow shift in your Apple products. It's going to be under display or display and brightness, night shift, and then turn it all the way to yellow and just manually enable that. And I do that every morning. Like wake up in the morning with my coffee, turn on my computer, and everything looks like my computer looks so bright. I'm like, I can't see, like this is painful. And then I turn it on to the yellow shift. I'm like, much better, feels much better. So that is, and I do that also on my phone, yellow shift on my phone. So you do it on your computers and your tablets. It's going to save your eyes a lot because I didn't talk enough about the retinas. You need to have a balance of blue light versus red light in your retinas to be able to have your retinas regenerate. They regenerate. Yes. If you go to eye doctors, they'd be like, oh, sorry, kid, you're out of luck, kid. You've got macular degeneration. Your eyesight's only going to go down. So suck it hard. I'm being very silly. And kids, don't emulate me, please. It's not the right way to speak. But no, doctors present macular degeneration as if it is an inevitable decline of the sensitivity of your eyesight, when in truthfulness, your eyesight can heal and grow stronger. But what you need to do is diminish your exposure to blue light. Everybody every day is staring at blue light, either stuff that comes from the sky or stuff that's on these silly old electronics. You know what's not blue light? Candle light, a fireplace or a campfire, a torch, an oil lamp, and incandescent bulbs, and a Himalayan salt light, and my red chicken light. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of in the I keep it on for Princess Cheeky, who loves the chicken light, and she sleeps, kind of like laying underneath it, like she's, getting all this and whatever, beautiful and warm in these cold winter times, winter months. But yeah, all of those are positive sources of light, and the negative sources of light are going to be blue LEDs, the compact fluorescents, and pretty much everything that comes off of the phone. So not life affirming. The blue light is not life affirming. When you expose your eyes to red light and also far infrared, so that's both light and heat. The reddish light, reddish orange light and heat. It's what a campfire gives you, all right? It heals and restores the activity and the sensitivity of the cells that are in your retina. So you have to balance out time spent in total darkness. That's what the primal aspect of you needs. Like, you don't need light all the time. You don't need to have like light on in after the sun goes down and keeping you kind of awake. But you're like, like this is what we do. The sun goes down and then we watch Netflix on the computer until we go to sleep at night. And I'm like, I know, but that is not really the best thing to do, because what you actually need to do is rest your eyes and stare at a campfire, or just be in low lighting and allow the eyes to regenerate, because you have different chemicals that create the photosensitivity in your eyesight, and most well known is named rhodopsin. And yeah, you can get plenty of extra rhodopsin by amping up your diet. Yes, you can eat things that have beta carotene like carrots, but the World War II fighter pilots in the RAF found out that purple berries like bilberries made the best augmentation to their sensitivity and their nighttime vision for these bombing runs. So get some bilberry jam. Eat colors, eat the rainbow. So that's things that have those deep purple colors. Blueberries are going to be awesome for you. Yes to red, orange, and yellow peppers if those are digestible to you. And everything that has the beautiful, colorful pigments as fresh, uncooked fruits and vegetables in high quantities help to restore your eyesight. Literally, you eat the rainbow so that you can continue to see rainbows and stop overwhelming your eyes with excessive amounts of blue light, which causes diminishment. So just giving you some basic body care stuff there. But that has to do with sun gazing and receiving solar light codes and energy and nutrition from the sun, I still receive all of my nutrition that I need. I mean, of course, I eat physical food, but my consciousness and my inspiration, I still get it from the sun. But what I have to do is move beyond the optical presence of the sun and connect directly to the consciousness of the sun, even if there are clouds, chemtrails, or other particulates that are coming between me and that true origin of divine consciousness. So know that it is possible, but it's actually extra hard. It's like you can't just drive directly to the grocery store. You got to get on like the interstate, then you got to take exit 23, and then you got to take this road and this road and this road, and then you finally end up at the grocery store. So it's a more difficult route, but it is possible to do it, and Flying Rainbow Lasagne can help you to do it. So just know that it's possible, and also know that our light bodies need light to grow and flourish, and that's why there is a very negative agenda to block out that light. So yeah, I'm happy actually to share the contact info for the wonderful company that makes not only that paper, but also the purple crystals that I use for personal protection and in my different personal sessions that I do. So the crystals are incredibly valuable and special. They're made out of gallium arsenide, which is a very rare crystal that has a unique quality in that it does not take on the energetic imprints of the things that it touches. So this is actually my very special crystal. This is a Herkimer diamond that I've had over 20 years. And it loves to meet people, meaning that when new people hold it, an imprint of who you are is imprinted on my crystal. This is like my Rolodex, my address book of all these different wonderful people whom I've met in my journey here over 20 years. It contains a wonderful amount of information. Here, I'll hold up something else that's similar. This is my hard drive. It's part of my computer, and I use it to hold all sorts of wonderful information. Crystals can take on imprints and hold information, and that's a great aspect of it. But the gallium arsenide does not take on imprints or hold information from its environment. So it is a baseline which can be used to calibrate to what are optimum truthful frequencies, and then compare that to the environment of what are non-optimum frequencies that might be distorted or erroneous, and then make a distinction between the two, just like I1 versus I2. And then the apparatus that the crystal is housed within has a microprocessor, and it creates an antithesis force field based upon those calculations. Like that's a beautiful, very scientifically elegant apparatus, and it has really improved my life so much because I got targeted a lot by the millimeter wave and the agenda behind the millimeter wave. And so I have these crystals. They are set on the 5G protection frequency that scans my force field and sees where there are erroneous millimeter waves that are coming at me. And then it creates an antithesis, a neutralization of those waves, so that way I can spend less of my energy quotient every day blocking out millimeter waves, because I used to spend like 99% of my energy blocking out those waves. And now I spend 3% of my conscious energy blocking out those waves because I have these crystals doing it. And that's why I keep them in my bra. So not to give you TMI or get your mind out of the gutter. I have them so that they are facing my skin. And yes, but don't have to wear them, internally, but it's powerful if you do. You can keep them in your pocket, or you can wear them on a necklace or something like that. And you guys have certainly seen me doing that. So I have only good things to say about the company that makes them. They're huge integrity people doing a lot of groundbreaking science, even taking up the mantle of some scientists who have done this research and then been suppressed and even unalived because what they were researching was so threatening to the present level of control structure. And none of the components of those crystals are made in China or connected to the internet or available for your surveillance or your biometric, monitoring. No algorithms are collecting data on you. Like, me, I am very selective and mistrustful of a lot of technologies. This is like one of the only companies that I think is doing amazing work. And also, their website cannot make certain claims because of FDA, even though this company is in Germany. They would get a lot of legal problems if they said all sorts of things. So it can help enormously in different aspects of rebalancing health. And I would also call it an amazing consciousness tool for ascension and personal evolution, but they cannot make claims. So, like, one of the frequencies that you can program your crystal for, the company calls it beautiful skin. Like, put this on your face, it will be beautiful skin. But it really is an anti-inflammation frequency, but they cannot make those claims and say, yes, put on this frequency, it is anti-inflammation, because then they will have many, many federal lawyers that will come to them and make their lives hard. So they have to be selective in how they present this stuff. But I am happy to give information to anybody who wants to know more about it based upon my own personal experiences with these tools. And you can email me if you want to know more about it. And if you want to know what's my email, it's Flying Rainbow Lasagna at me.com. Just email me and I'll send you all the information. And one of the people who's one of the lead researchers there is very responsive. And if you have more questions and are thinking of purchasing one or more of these crystals, you can be in touch with them by email, and they're very happy to answer questions and give you guidance about what it is and what they're doing in the world. So because they're just, again, a very wonderful company that is just like a family-owned independent company that's making this stuff. Like, it's kind of miraculous that they're even able to get the information out there and be able to help people in this way. So let me look at my notes, because I know we're almost at the end of class. We have about half an hour left. I want to make sure that I'm getting to aspects of non-duality. Oh yeah, I want to talk about the binary system. So I told you about I1 plus I2 equals your binocular view of reality, featuring volume and depth. And when you add in your third eye, that is when you start to get the multidimensional view. Being able to, hold on a second, let me look at my notes. Sorry if because I want to talk about binary. So this relates to how humans have created computers and the binary system. In my original, so this actually, I think it's level 2, lesson 11. So again, this is stuff from weeks down the road in the semester, but I'll give you a little appetizer of what it is. In my original whiteboard recording from 10 years ago, I misspoke and I said that it was Sir Isaac Newton who developed I want to say binaural, not binaural, the zeros and ones, binary system, which is now the basis of digitized computer technology and a lot of what humans have for information carrying in this world. But it wasn't Sir Isaac Newton. It was this other guy who was his contemporary, whose name was Leibniz. Okay, so that's why I was wrong. When you do your homework and you watch those whiteboards, I later come back and I say, I was wrong in lesson blah, blah, blah. So don't internalize to me. Do your research and find out who it was. I was wrong when I said that. But the binary system was developed actually by both of those guys, but Leibniz gets the credit back in the 1600s. And it is basically a way of representing all numerals. You're like, this is math. I'm getting out of here. Okay, don't worry. Just going to feel okay about this. Your regular numerals, like numbers, whole numbers, 1 through 9, plus the number 0. To be able to represent all of those numbers and all possible combinations of numbers simply using ones and zeros. There is the 0, which would be considered the off position. There's no energy there. And there's the 1, which would be considered the presence of something. So no presence, non-existence versus presence. And this was the essence of duality, a way of describing the whole entire world based upon these complementary opposites. Now I'm going to do a little education with you, though. When I hold up these two counting symbols, how many of them are there? Be like on Sesame Street. Let's count them together. How many is this? And then how many is this? And then how many am I holding up on your screen together? Well, you're like, well, Aurora, clearly, like this is one symbol, and this is another symbol. This is one, and 1 + 1 = 2. Correct. That wasn't so hard. That you were all scared about the math, and then look at that. It wasn't so hard. But why is that important? Because this is the numeral 0, and this is the numeral 1. And in the binary viewpoint of reality, that's all you got, kid. You got zeros and you got ones, nothingness and somethingness. But here's the bridge to multidimensional perspective. How many of these somethings do I have? I have 2 of them. I therefore have not only 0 and 1, I also have 2. I have 0, 1, and 2. And once you have 0, 1, and 2, you essentially have the entire number line, because all you have to do is keep on adding 1 to 2, and then add 1 to the product of that, and add 1 to the product of that. You have all of the rest of the numbers. So what's the significance of that? In any system where it starts out and you look at it and you think this is a very limited dualistic system, and they don't even have symbols to represent and talk about something that is more expansive than just the binary dualistic system. Inherent within the binary dualistic system is the implication of the multidimensional progression of something that is more complex than something that only has a 0 or a 1. And that is the multidimensional viewpoint. So in your own body, you've got I versus I, but then you have the implication of your third eye that gives you the next level of expanded viewpoint. But that ain't the end, kid. That's just like adding the numeral 1 to 2. And then you get 3, and then you add the numeral 1 to 3, and you get 4, and you keep on adding and adding and adding. So now let's draw the journey of an ascended master. And then let's draw the journey of what's happening as you go through the refinery of consciousness. It's going to be so great. Journey of consciousness as an ascended master. Let's start off with this as a red vortex. And of course, you know that this is shorthand because you know that there's actually going to be a vortex up here, a vortex over here, a vortex over here. That one didn't even draw. A vortex that goes towards you, a vortex that goes away from you. Erase all of that because you will get confused. But Princess Cheeky might be waking up. I have bribes for her. So here is the path of least likelihood, beginning here at birth, moving up the central core timeline. This is the only real impulse that really exists. And then what I usually do is draw for you a little figure 8 to show that that journey just keeps on going. But that is a shorthand, because what happens when you get to here is the purple giant dot that represents the source, which is also the destination. That is not the end. That is not the end. You enter into the source, but it is not the end of your journey, because you then find yourself at the starting point of the next vortex, which is going to be orange. And then from orange, you must explore the potentials within that layer of reality until you are able to arrange yourself here in this position and move upward through the central core timeline. So that means just like you've been exploring, wait, choosing a different color. You explored all this stuff and you found out that's all peripheral nonsense. That's not who I really am. I'm really the blue line at the center. Then you get to the next layer of reality and you start out here at the edge. And you're like, oh, this is all a bunch of nonsense. This is not who I really am at all. And you have to get to this position here to be able to explore and master the next layer and level of reality. And so then you have, of course, singularity over here. And that ain't the end, kid, because then I know you might be hard to see this in your screen, but then there will be yellow. All right. And then there will be green. We're going to have to get small. Then there will be green. Then light blue. And then can I even make some more room on my screen? I'm going to draw them all. It's true. I'm that obsessive. Dark blue. And then all the way up to purple. this object's not drawn to scale because these guys would be much, much smaller. But every single one of these layers of time represents a further refinement of reality, where you're having to calibrate on an even smaller level about what is truth, about what is the true path, about what is the true path back to God's self-remembrance. So you master this layer of reality, but you're not an ascended master yet. The journey continues. Then you master this level of reality. You ain't home yet, kid. And master this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And then finally, you do return back to God's self-remembrance. Let's also talk about this in the sense of, let's draw this as a, oh, I don't want to confuse by choosing the wrong color. Giant cross section of part of the time torus. And then here is the giant source in the middle. This source is like a revolving door. So you come, of course, out from source, and then you circulate back to the source. All right. But that's not the end of your journey. You actually do not go directly from purple to red and then all the way back to red. What happens is you go into the purple dot. Can I find orange? There we go. You go, so you come out. I hope you can see my pen and gesturing here. You come out from purple. You circulate around into red, and then you come back to purple, but you are not done yet. What happens is you go into this revolving door, and then you emerge at the level of orange. And then you go in through the revolving door and you emerge at the level of yellow. Then you go in. I didn't even make it back in the revolving door. My drawing is so bad. Go into the revolving door and you emerge at the level of green. Then you go into the revolving door and you emerge at the level of light blue. Then you go into the revolving door and then you emerge at the level of dark blue. And then you go back to violet. So if I show you here with like a neutral color, what you're doing is coming out from here and you come around like this, and then 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 this, and then this, and then this. That's your true pathway. I'll draw it for you here. Jip, 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 jip. That's actually a very bad drawing because what I want to show is that it's all epicentered on this, source over here. So you're all moving in like this, but you're looking at it head on in foreshortening. What you actually get is a type of vortex going around in a circle. So if I show you, here is a cross section of the donut of your life. But what you actually end up having is a fluid dynamic expression that looks like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then like this, kind of like, I'm not getting it very well, but it's a cone that is shaped like this, that kind of curves around. I'll go back to my face and try to gesture with my hands to get this correct for you. Not a vortex where you just have one straight thing stretching the fabric of space-time, but a vortex where you have a curved thing. How can I hold my hands? It's curved. I can't. Curved, a curved thing coming through here, making a curved, stretched cone. And that is your true journey back into divine reconnection. Maybe I can turn on the light here because the sun just went down. I don't know if you can see me. There we go. A return journey to be able to reconnect with divinity. So that's what it looks like from your perspective. You've got this swirling spiral extended cone that also goes around the cakey part of the donut of your life. But just know that this is microcosm and allegory to many other things, and that same shape is going to show up for all of these other levels of reality and in all of these other representations of truthfulness. Good. Now, wait, let me check my notes because I did telling you about, yep, that was good. I got that. 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 That was good. Sorry, I'm making such the silly faces. I know. Multiple doorways to infinity. That's important. I got that. I will send out the notes so that way you can read all this stuff, because I didn't send out the notes for the past couple of days when I was doing this duality and perception. Okay, I got that. I got that. I got almost everything, guys. Time symmetry. That's what I didn't get yet. Time symmetry. So, I've spoken about this as being the end result of a stretchiness of a sphere. You have an impulse that stretches the sphere coming up from this way. That's that pathway of least likelihood. That's the pathway of you as an ascended master, aligning with the perfect potentials of that core timeline coming up from this. But look at how this shape here is the mirror image of this shape here. There is an impulse that is coming in this direction. So what you actually have is ascended master impulse, you coming in this direction, but also ascended master impulse, you coming in this direction. And the two impulses actually meet and converge at the central convergence point. Parallel lines meet at infinity. When you're looking at the world through one point perspective, I've drawn that for you many, many times, like in art class. We like art a lot better than math, Aurora, I know. Art class, parallel lines meet at infinity. So that's like if you're standing on a set of train tracks and you look at the train tracks extending away from you, you will see them go off into the distance and connect at the horizon. Parallel lines meet at infinity. You're having the similar experience of multidimensional aspects of yourself coming from these directions and meeting at infinity, these directions and meeting at infinity, and even these directions and meeting at infinity. And you can tell that they are perfectly balanced forces, meaning like if I'm moving in this direction and I'm moving at 10 miles an hour, I'm moving in this direction and I'm moving at 10 miles an hour. And you're like, oh no, you're going to have a head-on crash. But you don't crash. You align perfectly in such a way that you energize the pathway of the other impulse aspect of self. We will conclude class very soon, but until then, I want to talk about infinite space, infinite movement within a finite space. Said it wrong, but let's get it right. Infinite movement within a finite space. So first we will draw finite space. Here is point A. No, I want it to be a fat line. Just come on. I pressed the button. I did the thing. Here's point A. Here's point B. And there's a finite amount of space in between point A and point B, whatever. It's like 6 inches or 6 miles or 100 miles, but definitely a finite countable amount of space in there. But we could have an infinite journey. When we take an impulse and we emerge from this surface and then go to this surface over here, but then we bounce back off of this surface and we go in the opposite direction back over to here. And then we bounce off of this surface and go in this direction over to here. And then we bounce off of this surface and we go in this direction over here. You can do that an infinite, endless amount of times, as long as there is no friction, no loss of signal from the action of bouncing between these two finite points. You, as a person who is coming from this very traumatized level of reality, might respond as people who have spoken about this in the past, especially in my naivete, because I'm like, hooray, I'm alive, life is a gift. And a lot of other people are like, we've been here for a long time. We're very tired. Doesn't feel like life is a gift. They're feeling existential ennui, which is like super boredom from the repetitive nature of everything they've been subjected to. Could also be considered having a threadbare soul, which is when you've been through the washing machine so many times that it's like the structure of the fabric of who you are kind of starts to losing its integrity because you've been through so much. So I now, in my wisdom and in my experience of your world, recognize that many people are traumatized, and that's why you wouldn't view endless, infinite consciousness journey as a good thing. You'd be like, I don't want to be stuck in jail for forever, because you think of this world as jail. But this world is not supposed to be jail. This world is supposed to be a wonderful, expansive adventure of consciousness that has a meaning, has a purpose, and you continue to grow and evolve and expand as you experience that wonderful adventure. Positive. That's like the brochure. I'm like a salesperson, like, it will be great. And you're like, this is not great. I'm like, I know it's not according to the brochure, but it was supposed to be great. So, no apologetics, but just like, please know it was supposed to be great. And hopefully that will also help to inform you as you will say, like, well, I made good choices in order to enter reality and experience biological formfulness. I made good choices because an infinite journey bouncing between two finite places that's fun is good. Like, hooray, keep bouncing. This is great. Like, you didn't know that it would turn into a giant pile of doo-doo and feel very unpleasant. So endless self-compassion that things ended up being not as described in the brochure. Like when you order something off of Amazon, you want to return it. Sometimes it will give you options like, why did you return this? Size too big, size too small. Object not as described. I think that's what you got with reality. You're like, can I return this? Do I have the receipt? Definitely object not as described, because you're supposed to be on a beautiful infinite journey of refinement that never really ends. It's not like, okay, the impulse comes from the source, which is God, evolves into material existence and individuality, goes through material individuality, and then returns back to God, and then kind of like plops down on the couch, like, wow, like, what a journey. I'm so tired. Let me take off my clothes and get into my pajamas and just kind of sit here and never go anywhere again. No, that is actually not what happens. That even as I showed you the various different layers of refinement that you go through according to each of the colors of the rainbow, and you make it back to the 0th dimension, that doesn't mean that that's the end of your journey. It means that you will be emanated again. And so what you really have is not just point A and point B as I drew it on your screen, but what you really have is a structure like this, where you have point A over here and point B over here, and your ascended master impulses, which are my fingers, are constantly meeting each other in perfect balanced harmony, and they are then immediately bouncing off of each other in mirror symmetry and going back in the opposite directions. But also you can interpret that as that they meet each other and that they continue going inward where my two fingertips touch. Like they go in, they don't meet each other and explode. They don't turn to 0, like no more movement. They continue going inward infinitely, just like the train tracks that go off into the distance infinitely. When with your visual perception, when you look at train tracks that go off into the distance, you don't think like that's an infinity amount of train tracks. You know that if you walked to the point where they come together, that you would have more train tracks. They don't end, is what I'm trying to say. Although when you look through your eyes, you see a horizon and what looks like a determined place, the end of the line, the determinant. When you walk to that point, find out that it's not the end at all, that it was the end from your viewpoint many miles down the road, but when you actually got there, that there was still lots of viewpoint in front of you. And that viewpoint looks like it's the end of the road. But when you get there, you're like, this is not the end of the road either. This is the infinite journey. And it's a positive infinite journey. It's not like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, I'm so depleted from this marathon. Can we please get to the end of the road? Because at the end of the road, there will finally be like, oh, Gatorade and a nice, they wrap you in one of those little Mylar blankets and you get to take off your running shoes. And you're like, oh, I'm so tired. It's like, no, you're supposed to be on a really comfortable, fun, and exalted, expansive journey that's frictionless. Again, the infinite journey only happens when you have frictionless impulses that bounce from point A to point B. And a lot of what you experience as discomfort in this world has to do with friction, including your mental state. Like even before this malware and stuff that has been put into people's minds that creates a lot of mental friction and slows down your life force energy. There was just the regular talking mind, which is not your natural apparatus. Like when you came here as a child, you didn't have that. And you were flowing through time with minimal friction. And then as they start to implant the language structures in your mind, and they also do at the same time teaching you about time. that is when friction begins to happen. So you're a little tiny child, you're nonverbal or preverbal. And then you start to learn how to talk when you're like maybe 2 or 3 years old, and everyone is like, hooray, like you're meeting all your milestones. And that's great. But it also means like you're starting to experience inner friction. And also, you're starting to inner friction and the inner dialogue. That is what really starts to cause cellular aging. And when you're a child, it's like, hooray, like you're growing up and you're growing older. But then when you're an adult, you're like, not that good to be growing older, right? You don't want to have more decrepitude. You want to evolve and develop and grow stronger, but not become more decrepit. So now you can kind of see what is the value of meditation. In this world, you must be very cautious about meditation because you don't just want to sit there with an open mind and let this stuff get inside of you as a malevolent AI or something like that. That's like, nice open door you got in your mind there. It's okay if I come and couch surf and inhabit you for an infinite amount of time. The answer is no. So in finer times, meditation might have been a great way to stay young and beautiful forever, because you weren't creating all that friction in your mind. But in this time and place, if you sit around with your mind, you're not using your mind and you're not talking in your mind. Something else might be like, it's like leaving your car open with the keys on the dashboard, and some naughty fragments might come in and be like, this is just the vehicle I was looking for. Let me steal those keys, get inside, and drive the car wherever I want it to go. So none of that is acceptable. But ideally, you would live in a blissful, frictionless existence where you have minimal mind. You really have no mind, but you still do stuff. So also, I'm not down on meditation in general. I think it's an essential workout at the gym. I don't think you should live at the gym. That means like sitting immobile and not thinking and not producing, which is, what some philosophies, religions, and schools of meditation practice. Just immobile, non-movement, and negation of mind. But I'm like, no, like you should do stuff in life. So the whole goal of meditation is, of course, to husband your energy, get an energetic bank account, so then you can do stuff with your energy. And I try to do activities that keep me in a state of positive mindfulness, mindlessness. And that's usually nothing that involves talking. No offense to you. I love teaching my class, but I do stand here flapping and moving mouth parts for several hours a day. It's a lot of talking. My favorite activities are the ones where I am doing things that don't require me to talk so much. That's playing my music, listening to music, painting my paintings, doing projects, because I don't have to think. Like when I make a project, I don't have to think like, pick up the paintbrush, dip it in red paint over here. Like I just pick up, dip, and go. I just paint. And being at an optimum speed also helps me too. Like when I have to slow down, then I experience a lot of friction. But when it can just be fast and spontaneous, I was like, oh, red, orange, paint, this, that. It's like being an athlete. Like when you ask an athlete, like, how exactly do you do your thing? And they have to think about it. They're like, well, first I step with my left foot, and then I reach with my right hand, and then I grab this, and then I do this. Like they get all tripped up because what they're really doing is moving at a supra-conscious level, a level beyond the regular state of awareness known as consciousness, or the sub or unconscious. Activating the supra-conscious is an activity of bliss, which is a frictionless state that allows you to continue to move through time from point A to point B endlessly and with a great quality of existence. Princess Cheeky has awoken. There will be bribes. It's actually time to wrap up class, so the timing is perfect. Come here. And if you guys have any questions or comments or anything you need to know about, even if you just want to tell Cheeky that she's really cute, she needs to hear it. Cheeky drives on praise. We love you very much, Cheeky. Yeah, we'll take care of you in a minute. You're a good dog. Good dog, good dog, good dog, good dog. Okay, Master Cheeky. Master Cheeky is totally in the moment, but I will tell you that she does suffer from food amnesia, where you can give her dinner and then one moment later she's like, look, the dish is empty. I'm in the moment. Nothing just happened. I'm like, something just happened and you already ate your food, but we'll give her more. I have it all prepared together. So any more questions or comments or anything that I can speak to right now, I'm happy to do so. And I will send out the notes. So some of this was level, that was non-duality and perception, level 2, lesson 3. So just so that you kind of know where we are in the semester. So I've already kind of mushed together level 1, lesson 1 and 2, and done a little bit of level 2, lesson 3. And I'll send out the notes for all of that to you guys. Okay, I'm not getting any more questions or comments. Princess Cheeky needs some FOOD and a WALKOUT. Let's do it. Thank you very much, everyone.